Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
Float like a pod, sting like a cast. His hands can't hit what his eyes can't see.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's fine. This isn't an inherently quotable movie, apart from that it's about the most quotable man who ever lived.
Right, and I don't want to pull a Billy Crystal and try to do some extended impression.
Like Don King bit?
Well, he does them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Billy Crystal's greatest characters: Muhammad Ali, Don King, Sammy Davis Jr., Jazzman.
Jazzman, that's right.
Yes.
Isn't Jazzman just Sammy Davis Jr., or is he's
Jazzman's a separate character.
Okay,
No. Jazzman is a separate character.
All right, let's get off this right away.
Have you never seen the comic relief routine post-Hurricane Katrina?
Yes. No, I have.
Yeah. So you're familiar with Jazzman. Okay. You've met the Jazzman.
Yeah, I met the Jazzman.
And also, of course, Billy Crystal's most terrifying character, Uncanny Valley Tintin.
Sure, right.
From the Oscars when he played.
Have you seen this?
I've not seen this.
Okay. Talking on mic before we introduce you, it's what I like.
Perfect, and we're going to pull up the image from you. This was the last time that Billy Crystal ever hosted the Oscars after Eddie Murphy quit.
So yes or no, was he in blackface?
When he hosted the Oscars?
Yes. In that intro, he also did Sammy Davis Jr.
Nice.
But somehow it was the second most upsetting
Jesus, tap dancing Christ.
Right. Now, this is a great example of, he starts off the montage.
And no one was asking for this. Like, the producers weren't like, you're going to do Tintin, right? Because the fans, they want you to do Tintin.
It made 80 domestic and got 0 Oscar nominations. Maybe he got score.
I think he got score.
Right. But this is what's incredible.
No, it didn't actually. Warhorse got score, didn't it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a double Williams year.
Double Willie?
I think it might have been a double Willie. It might have been Big Willie style. This was a year where Billy jumped in at the last second to save the Oscars. Right. Who's going to host? Billy's going to save the Oscars. He does his classic, thank you, edit himself into the movies montage. At the beginning of that montage, what does he do? Edit himself in as Sammy Davis Jr., of course, someone who was very important to the film-going year of 2011.
Talking to Bieber, right? It was like a Bieber sketch.
Yeah, the two biggest movie stars of 2011 were Justin Bieber and Sammy Davis Jr. And you watch it and you go, cool. So in the first, 85 seconds of the ceremony, he's already gone to the old chestnuts. This is the most politically uncomfortable thing that has happened in Oscar ceremony.
Yeah, it was rough.
In years and years and years. How could this get worse? And then he upped the ante with Tintin, which has no cultural inappropriateness, but it's just a cursed image.
It's a bit of a curse.
It's a cursed image.
That's really unsettling.
Yeah, turn it back around one more time. Let's just see it one more time.
Let's get him back.
I mean, what is going on there?
He looks like Sammy Sosa.
You know what? You're incredibly right. He looks like bleached Sammy Sosa.
It's true. There's something off about his skin tone in it. And is it because the hair is sort of clashing and like sort of makes everything look stranger?
I don't know.
He's got this red hair.
It's also weird because, like, at that time when
Tintin doesn't really have red hair. Tintin has, like, blonde hair, doesn't he? I guess it's, like,
it's
auburn.
Yeah. That's a richer sort of... But I feel like at that time everyone was complaining about, like, the mocap thing, Uncanny Valley makes me so uncomfortable. And I'm like, if you think Tintin looks creepy, look at fucking Billy Crystal as Tintin. Tintin looks handsome. Tintin's a nice boy and he looks handsome.
Do you remember that? Did he edit himself into the Tree of Life? Which was an Oscar nominee. It was a Best Picture nominee.
I don't think he did, but now what
I would love to see him do that.
I wish he had put his face on the baby's foot. I wish that's the famous The Tree
dinosaur?
of Life. No, I'm saying when they hold the baby's foot. I wish he had, like, it just been Brad Pitt going like, when does a soul start? And then it cuts to Billy Crystal's face on a foot going like, hey, don't put a sock on me. Whatever he would have done. Oh, Billy. It was incredible how for like 10 years there, every year they'd be like, why don't they just bring Billy back? We all know Billy was the best.
Right, and they brought him back.
And guys like you and I would rewatch.
Let us never speak of this.
Right, because
we would rewatch and be like, Billy's okay.
We tell people, like, you don't want Billy back. They would be like, no, we want Billy back.
You know, Steve Martin, like, if you rewatch Steve Martin's hosting gigs, they're great, really funny.
Yeah, I think both of Ellen's were good. I think both of Jon Stewart's were good.
Chris Rock was good. Like, there have been good hosts. And people would always be like, Billy Crystal, where's he been?
I think people liked the security of knowing there's a regular host. There's someone who's going to host 4 out of 5 years.
You left out Ricky.
Right? He didn't host the Oscars.
He didn't Oscar. What did he do?
Oh, no, he hosted the Globes because
he was too hot for the Oscars.
Man, he's too hot for the Oscars.
You watch the Oscars? You care about the Oscars?
I do watch the Oscars.
Do you know that
but you don't care about it like we do.
An atheist?
I mean, I've heard that he's also very edgy.
Yeah, Ben, cut that
very
out.
edgy man.
Okay, you're right.
I don't want us to get sued.
Yep, you're right.
He is very edgy, and he kind of doesn't care.
In the special thanks of the Golden Globes, he thanks not God.
Take that, not God.
That's my favorite part of the Golden Globes is the special things.
Special thanks for Mickey Gervais.
Yeah.
Oh my God! All right, blank check. Set us up.
We're talking about a movie here that was sort of seen. It was one of those films
it was,
that, like,
it
a
was
year
the
out
number
was
one
like,
Oscar favorite.
Right.
Absolutely, that's
right.
true. That's a
Which
good
I
segue.
think, by and large, that almost always dooms a movie. I think there are very few cases, especially I'd say post
Good Shepherd syndrome.
2000.
Right.
Unbroken. Dreamgirls.
Dreamgirls, for sure.
I mean, you go like Star is Born is kind of the most successful example of that, and it still didn't win any major
Cold
awards.
Mountain.
Cold Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Very often they get knocked out of Best Picture entirely.
People are sort of like, the hype was so huge.
Too high.
This movie's just
right.
okay.
And you're like, Star is Born beat the curse by at least getting all the nominations.
But Star is Born lost to Green Book, which I feel like, but that's
the
more
greatest,
brutal than some losses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, it's like the Heat losing to the Mavericks in 2011, where you're like, they shouldn't have. You know what I mean? Like on paper,
yes,
right?
I know exactly
Right.
what you're talking about. I was about to say that exactly.
It's like the 2016 presidential election.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That's literally. I mean, not literally.
Right.
You know what? Green Book is better than Donald Trump's presidency. I'll give it that. Right?
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, right?
I agree. Green Book successfully lands a couple jokes.
I like doing this thing where I compliment Green Book by saying it's better than like very bad things.
Yes.
Right.
Let's do a power ranking. Green Book, right?
Number one.
In terms of the best bad things.
Sure. So like number two is like E. coli or whatever.
Right. I was going to say Chernobyl.
right.
It's a little better. No, you're right. I mean, because it is the thing where you're like, Hillary Clinton, like 2008, you don't get the nomination. But, like, losing to Barack Obama has more dignity than getting the nomination in 16 but losing to Trump.
No one's going to hold it against you if you lose to the first black president.
Right.
He's well liked, too.
Right.
He's still pretty popular.
But people hold against you if you lose to the first Trump president.
Don't say first.
I'm going to say it. I'm calling my shot. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, first of her name, Ivanka Trump.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is the mother of dragons.
She's the mother.
Daenerys is very Trumpy.
Yes.
You don't watch
I've never watched it.
I forgot. But
yeah.
She is, right?
Yeah.
She is.
It's the only thing I'm less skilled to pretend I know about than basketball.
Right.
I probably know more about basketball than Game of Thrones. Well, I know the cultural, the character
up
names.
Through the years, I'm sure.
Jon Snow.
Jon Snow, sure.
Jaime Lannister.
That's another one.
Lannister always repays his debts. Is that a thing they do?
You know a ton. This is amazing.
That's like 90% right there.
Dragons?
Yeah, they're there. Dragons are in there.
Dinklage is also a Lannister?
Mm-hmm. Tyrion.
Okay.
There's all the cold boys coming.
I know they're cold boys. Lannisters, Starks. Who are the other big
you got the big two. The Targaryens.
Those are the big two. Targaryens. Yeah. Momoa.
Khal Drogo. Yeah.
Yeah, I know people have been on it. Raven's got 3 eyes. A crow.
There's a 3-eyed raven. There's just the one.
There's just the one.
Yeah. Sort of like the chief psychic.
Yeah. Everyone's unsubscribing. This is Blank Check with Griffin. It's a podcast
show in which we describe the basic premise of Game of Thrones.
A thing that no one's heard about.
8 seasons in.
I will say this. I used to feel like I was part of 12% of the global population that didn't watch this show.
Sure. And now it's like down to 2.
Yeah. I feel like in the 18 months or whatever it was in between these seasons, everyone else who hadn't watched it caught up.
This happened with Breaking Bad too.
Yes.
Where they were like, I know the last season's coming, so I'm finally going to if I haven't yet, I'll get through it all.
And I'll say, with Breaking Bad, I wasn't caught up in real time because the final half season wasn't on Netflix by the time.
Yeah, that's how they.
But I had watched half of the show by the time it finale, and I understood at least the basic thing.
Right.
Game of Thrones, I just feel like I'm never going to watch.
It's fine.
Yeah, and it's not like an act of resistance. I'm not taking a stance.
I know, I get you.
Yeah.
I feel like there might just come a time once it's all there that you'll throw it on and you'll be like, oh, okay, and you'll sort of move through it.
You know how many canonical TV shows I have not watched
don't
that
watch
are
a lot
ahead of
TV.
it in the docket.
Right,
yeah.
right. And also, you don't really like high fantasy shit.
High fantasy
that
isn't my
much.
favorite.
It's not really high fantasy. I don't know how you describe it.
I don't know. It's just sort of I feel like it's its own genre, HBO fantasy.
Sure.
It is HBO
It's a high fantasy when I watch it.
Okay. Well, of course. Yes, of course it is.
Boo.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben.
Yes.
What's up?
Token that reefer.
I thought you were serious now.
I am.
Oh, yeah, Ben has rebranded recently. He's decided he's very serious now. And his coworkers asked him when the bit had started, and he said, I'm drinking espresso, so is that an answer?
I'm very serious.
He's very serious now. He doesn't do bits anymore.
All right. Blank
No,
check.
it's
I'm
not
sorry.
that. I'm serious.
Oh, right. Your bits have to be serious.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Blank check.
Blank Check with Griffin and David. It's a podcast about filmographies. Directors who have massive success early on in their career and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. Sometimes those projects float like a butterfly, and sometimes they sting like a bee.
Very good.
That was better than the
That
quote.
was good. That was
right?
fine. That was good.
This, of course, is a miniseries on the films of Michael Mann.
Yeah.
It's called Cast of the Podhekins.
It's the only one we could do.
It's literally
all
all
these
the other
one-word titles. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
He's a one-word title guy.
Podlateral was the second best option. That's how dire things were.
Yeah, I can't think of anything
It's
else.
the only
There's
one that
nothing
has a
else.
flow to it. Because even the other ones that are longer,
Like
it's
Public Enemies.
you're not
What are you
gonna
going to
do
do with
pod,
Public
like,
Enemies?
Castamies.
Yeah,
Like, that
right.
sucks. That's bullshit. The subtitle to this miniseries, of course, is Michael Mansplaining.
Yes.
And today we're talking about what seemed like his big Oscar play.
Absolutely.
Coming off The Insider, his first time when he had like a real Oscar-y movie.
Big critic credit. Yeah.
Right. And then he's working with the biggest star
That's true.
of the moment,
Indisputably, I think.
who is, we'll talk about this, in a pocket where he clearly is trying to win an Oscar.
100%.
Where he steps away
Where
from
he's
blockbusters.
like, it's time for me to be serious.
Right,
Yes.
right. And like I think he hoped
Like Ben.
he's like Ben. He was in his Ben phase.
Right.
Yes.
Wild Wild West had kind of like knocked him off the blockbuster path. He was
Right.
like, all right, enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's Bagger Vance and this, and then he goes back to
Then he does Men in Black 2. Then he starts taking the huge paycheck.
And
This is
then
Men in Black 2, Bad Boys 2,
Right.
iRobot, Hitch, Pursuit of Happiness is his next sort of like prestige movie.
But Pursuit of Happiness makes $165 million
big-
domestic.
Does it really?
It does insanely
He did
well.
the Rubik's Cube so fast in that guy's limo. Have you seen The Pursuit of Happiness, or am I referencing?
There's a whole block of Will Smith movies that I just refuse to watch.
I mean, I don't know why anyone would ever really be fired up to watch The Pursuit of Happiness. It's not even bad.
I
It's
kinda
sort
like
of
that movie.
He's good in it.
Well, you know, I had this whole fucking
Oh boy.
I feel like I've talked about this on the show before, but I used to have I'm like a crazy person, right? This is well established on the show at this point.
Fully established.
When I was
Still
like-
haven't introduced our guest.
Right. When I was like 16, I very much had a fantasy of being like a very young single father.
Okay.
I had
You're
this
sort of
like
a Gilmore Girls, like a reverse Gilmore Boys.
I really
Human Boys.
I want to be
You want to
forced
just like
step
have a
up to
kid
the
when you're
challenge.
right. The classic movie premise of like he's a single guy who does his thing. But
It was
now he's
like-
got a baby.
It was my heroic fantasy. Like I was
Sure.
like, that's the only heroic thing I could do. You know, I'm never gonna know how to like act immediately in an emergency. You know, I'm never gonna have like the ability to save someone. I could if accidentally a baby was dropped off at my feet.
Right,
Raise
you'll
it.
figure it out. Sure.
Right.
And you get your friends on board, and it would be charming. And
Right, I think I just wanted to be the plot of like a
Big Daddy.
decent
You're describing
WB
Big
dramedy.
Daddy.
I think more the dramedy. I mean, the Gilmore
Okay.
Girls thing we were saying, I
Life
think,
Unexpected.
right.
Yeah.
But so I was all about Pursuit of Happiness.
Sure.
That was a mood board movie for me.
All right.
Because I'm a broken person. But that was the thing. Like at that point in time, it was like, you know, he's back to one movie a year. All his movies are hits. Pursuit of Happiness is a little lower budget. This is him making another Oscar movie. But then that overperformed too. And it was that corridor for like 10 years where he never did under 100 million.
Except for Ali.
That was the one.
Yeah.
This is the
And
last.
Bagger Vance.
Right, but I'm saying
Yeah.
2000 Bagger Vance. Ali 2001.
Oh, but you're saying post Ali. Right.
Right. And then
yeah.
he doesn't. 7 pounds is the next one to not make 100,
Yeah,
right?
Do not touch the jellyfish.
And that's 8 or 9.
7 pounds is 2008.
Okay. Yeah, so he has. I mean, he's a pretty insane run there.
Yeah, he does.
And the run before that is also pretty insane.
Yes.
And this feels like the last time he so fully handed himself
Gave
over
himself
to
over
a
to a
director.
director. 100%.
That's a big thing with this movie.
Yeah, but he unfortunately entered that sort of zone where he's kind of the director.
Yes.
After that,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
where he's picking guys who he can probably just boss around.
He works with other people and he works with worse people, but he's always the ultimate say.
I think so.
Yeah.
Except Suicide Squad, of course.
Well, yes. The most twisted movie of them all.
His only hit in practically a decade.
It's so weird. It's so
Weird
weird.
career.
It's weird to think of that, too, as a Will Smith movie, even though he is very much like the lead.
Yeah.
Do you agree with me?
That he's the lead?
Yes.
Yes.
But it's weird to think of it as a Will Smith movie.
He didn't even get a tattoo.
He didn't even get the tattoo.
You know about this?
I heard about this.
He didn't even...
He didn't write squad
right.
on his...
S-K-W-A-D.
But also, apparently, Idris Elba's not playing... I already forgot his name.
Deadshot.
No,
Yeah.
apparently he's playing a different character.
Yeah.
So
They're not gonna try James Brody with that.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
They're not going to Don Cheadle Deadshot.
Yeah.
But, so maybe Deadshot will return someday.
I mean, clearly...
We love him.
We love
He's
him.
a great shot.
He's
got a kid.
He's a great shot.
What an
He's
arc
got a
that guy
kid.
had.
I like his tools.
Okay.
You
I
mean his guns?
Yeah, I was about
No,
to
but he's
say.
got like ricochets.
Yeah, he's got like a bunch of
Oh, sure.
He's
gun
got cool
business.
gear, like
Yeah.
cool cases.
What would you guys do if they announced the title for the Suicide Squad sequel and it was Suicide Squad Revenge of Slipknot?
Yeah, Slipknot's Revenge.
Yeah.
I'd be all about
Like it
it.
turned out that was Gunn's big take.
Right.
Was like, guys,
Slipknot got blown up 1 minute in. We're gonna dig into this.
we all know that Slipknot died. But what my pitch
studio's like, who?
presupposes is, what if he didn't?
I don't think we know that.
And they just hand him the bag of money.
All right, introduce our
We have
guest.
an amazing guest today. From the New York Times.
Yep.
Jamelle Bouie is here.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
You've been on the wish list for a long time.
I'm a longtime listener.
That's crazy.
Now you
That's
said
truly insane.
you have never listened to a podcast that you were on.
That's absolutely the
So
case.
this is going to be an immediate delete for you from
It'll
the feed.
show up in my
Swipe.
feed,
Yeah.
and I'll press it. I use a bad podcatcher, so I'll have to make multiple button
Okay.
presses, but I'll hit delete eventually.
Wow. Wow.
I'm a swiper. Pocket casts. You just swipe.
Yeah, more ways than one.
Okay.
Didn't you swipe one of my jokes on Twitter recently?
Swipe like oh, you mean stole?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
you joke thief.
Well, I'm always stealing your
Carlos
bits
Mencia
because they
over.
just get like baked into my brain by this podcast. It was either Deadpool knowing that he's in a movie
Wasn't that
or the other one.
It was not Logan Secretly a Western.
No, I mean it is.
Those
though.
ones I feel like I've shared custody with you. There was a joke you made
I'll find it.
on
I'm
Twitter,
gonna find it.
and then I quoted back.
You said you have stolen my joke, and I felt
Right.
terrible.
And then
I
I
was like, I
quoted
wasn't really
back
trying to steal your joke.
The time I made the joke on Twitter, please find it. We'll litigate this in a second. Jamel, tell me about your relationship with Michael Mann.
So my relationship with Michael Mann is that I did not have a relationship with Michael Mann up until the beginning of last year when I was doing a lot of travel, and I was looking for something to watch on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
And Thief was on Hulu,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, I know this is first Michael Mann's first movie.
Yeah.
I like James Caan, never seen this before, so I put it on, and I was like, this shit is dope as hell.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is a
Dope
great
as hell.
fucking
Yeah,
movie.
that was
It
pretty
is a
much our
great fucking
assessment.
movie.
as well.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that episode is just us yelling
Yeah.
like Prosky.
Yeah, roll. And we talk about pinching each other.
Oh God.
Pinch me.
I mean, like you had seen Mann movies, obviously they've been around, but like you had never really thought about like
Right.
Michael Mann as Mann.
I think maybe I had seen Heat.
Sure.
Which is the one everyone's seeing. And I had seen Black Hat because when that came out, I remember some friends saying, hey, this is actually pretty decent.
Yeah.
But I never connected it to Michael Mann. I've never
Sure.
thought in any systematic way about
They were
Michael
sort
Mann.
of isolated
Right.
viewing experiences for you. Okay.
So I watched Thief, really into it. And again, I'm traveling a lot. And so I think to give myself a thing to do, I said I will just watch as many of these as I can.
Cool.
And so over the course of that month I was traveling, then afterwards I kind of just made my way through every Michael Mann film in kind of its in chronological order.
So you had an experience very similar to what we're doing
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
You were viewing them all in like the build of the career. Now you hadn't seen Ali when it came out.
Not at all. I would have been like 13 when that movie came out,
Sure.
maybe 14.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think I was
I was 15, I think.
Yeah. I was like 12 or something. Yeah.
And it was your brother's favorite movie.
It was my brother's favorite movie. My brother was 9 at the time.
9 at the time.
And
But he liked boxing. He liked sports.
I'll get into this more in depth, but I think I've said this before in the podcast. His birthday, I believe it was his 10th birthday, was inviting a bunch of other 10-year-olds over, and they watched a VHS of Ali.
It's very strange.
It's very strange.
And it was
especially since the original cut, I think, is like close to 3 hours
Right,
long.
I just remember like checking in, my brother leaning forward, like so fully engrossed in like all the like Brotherhood of Islam scenes.
Sure.
And these other kids just like
completely asleep.
Yeah.
Because it opens with a fight, it closes with a fight, but in the middle there, like they're not exactly going to be like, oh, interesting. I didn't know a lot about his third wife.
That's what I'm wondering. Was it a sleepover birthday party? In which case, maybe the kids tapped out by just going to the only sleepover where kids tried to not stay up. But yes, it was a movie that played a lot in my household. Weirdly. But okay, so you didn't see it when it came out. Wasn't your kind of thing. Do you have any sort of relationship with Ali or Will Smith?
So less Ali. I just wasn't a big sports person growing up.
Dude, I hear you.
Yeah. I mean, my whole family was. Like, I'm the odd one out there.
Okay.
Like, everyone else, very into sports.
I hear you.
Where are you from? I don't know where you're from.
I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Okay.
Okay.
Much like Emma Stefanski. Shout out Emma Stefanski.
But Will Smith, I feel like I am of the exact age where Will Smith was sort of a major formative part of my entire childhood.
Yeah, he was the guy.
He was the movie star.
He was the guy.
He was sort of
when I was a little kid, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was sort of like at its height.
Yeah.
It was, I'm pretty sure most households, but certainly every black household watched the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and it was just like a thing that we watched as a family. When Men in Black came out, that was sort of just like we're all going to go see the movie.
Yep.
And that decade leading up to Ali is kind of, I'm a kid, Will Smith is omnipresent in my pop cultural life.
Right.
Because it's not just Men in Black and Independence Day and even Wild Wild West, but also his music career is still ongoing.
Yep.
Right? So Big Willie Style comes in, I think, in like 95 or 96.
97.
97.
The millennium, of course, began in 1999, as we all know.
Right.
So listen to a lot of Will Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to a lot of Big Willie Style. Listen to a lot of Men in Black soundtrack. And also, there was the Men in Black cartoon, which aired in the late 90s as well.
Right. I also watched that. It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
I remember that being pretty good.
It was pretty like straight faced.
Yeah.
Like I remember it being a little
kind of lore heavy, right? Like
Right.
it was
Right.
that approach.
right and pretty serious. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Will Smith just sort of, and even now, and I say this on Twitter ever so often, like what I want out of Will Smith is for him to sort of like try to recapture some of that magic and kind of give up the whole I need an Oscar in favor of being I'm a gigantic charismatic movie star. Let me do more of that.
Well, it felt like 2019 was strategically supposed to be the year of him recapturing that.
Right.
Like I think the play was
three big movies.
Right.
Does he have three?
3 movies this year. He's got Aladdin, of course.
That's right. Yep.
Right.
The genie.
He is the genie.
Right.
He's got Gemini Man,
right?
His Ang Lee high frame rate action movie. Who knows?
And then he's got his coup de grace.
That's right. The Spies. They're in disguise.
Spies in Disguise.
That's right. Do you know about Spies in Disguise?
Okay. This is how we're going to end the episode. This is how we're going to end the episode.
That's a good call.
Okay.
You'll watch the trailer.
We will not
Spies
touch
in
upon
Disguise.
this again until the end of the episode.
I wish the listeners could see my face when I was like, Spy? What the?
No, the Spies, they're just in disguise.
They're going to
It's
hear
just
your
good to know
reaction.
that
It'll be fine. All you need to know is that the spies are in disguise. But
that's queued up, ready for whenever we want.
I remember hearing this rumor that his salary for Aladdin was the biggest any actor had ever been paid.
What?
Because he was working on like a new album that was going to tie into it and was going to do a song for the end credits. Shout out to Demi.
I can't think of that without thinking of Demi now.
Right. I heard that scoop and I emailed Demi and he was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I was like, "This is what I've heard." And then it like seemingly hasn't happened. He's become very active on social media.
Yes, he has a great Instagram account.
I think he won the Webby Award.
Yeah, I think because he must have a whole team. He
Right.
was like great.
I know comedians who write for Will Smith now, and it's a weird room of people.
Right.
Like to his credit, He assembled a
right.
very odd room of like very different types of comedians and sensibilities.
He had the Instagram about Ali. He had a little video about it where he was like, Michael Mann, I love the man. He's crazy.
Right.
I had to like give up my whole salary for this movie.
Yeah.
Right? Like he had to.
I had to train for a year. Like I spent a year just researching. Like it's kind of a big deal because it sort of falls into that like Tom Cruise Eyes Wide Shut thing. Of like, I'm going to hand myself over to this guy and cede all control at the peak of my stardom.
Sure, right. Yes, absolutely.
And he can just break me and remold me however he wants.
Yeah.
And he did get a full $20 million for this movie. But it also was like very much a, like, you don't get to be Will Smith for a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I'm telling what you have to study. You know, the big thing Michael Mann did on this movie was he was like, in the boxing scenes, we're not going to fake any punches.
Right.
And the only direction he gave the guys that Will Smith was boxing against is you cannot knock him out.
And he's mostly boxing against like real boxers.
Yeah,
Those
they're like more boxers than actors.
Yes, right.
But this feels like the year where he's trying to recapture that thing. It was one of the reasons I was kind of excited when he signed on to Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I want to see him do a big fun thing, and then that movie ended up being not fun. But it is that thing. I feel like we've talked about this with DiCaprio as well, but DiCaprio is a different example because he was never like a blockbuster guy outside of the one anomaly of Titanic.
He kind of became a blockbuster guy later, weirdly.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
His movies perform well.
Sure.
But we're like, DiCaprio is so fucking innately charismatic that it's a bummer to watch him for years and years try to make these Oscar movies where he tries to sell everyone that he's a serious grown-up.
Sure.
Because no one else can do Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah.
Or Titanic or any of those other performances. And it's like the same thing with Will Smith where it's just like, there are things that no one else can do that this guy can pull off. And it's a little bit of a bummer when he backs away from it.
Right.
And even like Gemini Man, I am optimistic about that movie.
Sure.
In all of its weirdness, but it also feels like that's a movie that 1,000 guys could do. I hope he does it well.
The only pitch on having him and Gemini Man is the Fresh Prince thing, is the kind of like, remember young
grown
Will
up.
Smith?
Exactly, yeah.
We've recreated him in a lab. Like, it's sort of an odd... Yeah, but you could do it with a lot of people.
And the other problem is, right, it needs to be someone who has that kind of a decades-long career where we've grown up with them.
Yeah.
I mean, Gemini Man honestly sounds like more of a Tom Cruise kind of vehicle.
Totally.
It would be such a good Tom Cruise.
It'd be such a good Tom Cruise vehicle, and I also feel
I'd love
like...
Tom Cruise to work with Ang Lee, too.
Me
That'd
too.
be great. Yeah.
I think it is a problem, and this was my fear when they cast Will Smith. He has aged so fucking well that even when in the trailer you see 90s Will Smith and you're like, there is a difference there.
There's a difference.
It's not that radical.
I watched the trailer last night,
Yeah.
and I was when de-aged Will Smith shows up, my brain had to be like, that is de-aged Will
Right.
Smith.
He's
right?
a little
Right.
skinnier in the
Yeah.
face, basically.
Right.
Like,
I think they've done what they are trying to do very well.
Right.
But unlike Tom Cruise, who has aged well but looks his age,
Sure.
Will Smith, aside from letting himself get some gray in there,
Yeah.
really does look immaculate.
He looks like 38, 39.
Right.
looks
And that's the
pretty
other
great.
thing is watching Ali, I'm like, he looks so fucking young in this.
He does.
He looks like he's like 19. Like he looks like the de-aged Gemini Man
Right,
character
yeah.
in this. And the hair is kind of similar, but he's got the same shape to his face. And you're like, at this point, he's what, 31?
That sounds about right. I mean, he's playing him at about the age he's like
Right.
he is. Yeah, early 30s.
But he just looks like he barely aged in between Fresh Prince and this.
Yeah, he would be like 32.
Right.
Yeah, because he's like 51 or 52 now.
Yeah.
Right. And he's baby-faced in this, so he just looks so... I mean,
The other
the
thing
guy
is,
looks so fucking hot
He
in this
has
movie.
the physique. He has the correct physique.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
But now actors are so like swollen
Yeah.
and like, you know, even Will Smith in like Suicide Squad, I feel like he's gigantic.
Too big.
And so when you're looking at this, you're like, oh, he's supposed to be like an athlete. He looks so skinny compared to like the superheroes of today that are so buff.
It was
But
always
if you look
kind
at
of,
Ali,
yeah.
like that's what he looked like.
Right.
He was not like some like gigantic muscled man.
No, he looked like an action star, but he always... There was something cool to the fact that he was kind of lean.
Yeah.
Because so many action stars are in reality very short.
Right.
And there's a lot of weird boxes and smokes and mirrors to make Stallone look bigger and things like that. And
Right.
then he goes so crazy on the muscles that Will Smith was a guy where you're like, oh, this dude's like actually like 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah, he's a fit basketball player.
He's
That's
got
what
like
he looks
really practical muscles.
Right.
You know? But when you like put him in street clothes, you don't have the Schwarzenegger problem where you're like, no one's commenting on how insane this guy looks in an office.
So the sheriff in this small mountain town is apparently 6'4"
That's
and
the weirdest one.
220
the fact
pounds.
that was his comeback movie. Like, I'm done serving
Last
office.
Stand.
Now I'm gonna make a small town sheriff movie.
I actually really enjoy that movie. I like it a lot.
I have
Isn't it-
only
it's the
heard
good, the bad,
things
and the
about
weird
that.
guy, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it a remake too? It's like a remake of a Korean film or
Yes,
something.
the director's Korean.
The director is
Right,
Korean.
right.
Maybe it's just that the director's Korean.
Yeah.
I know it. Yeah, right. Yeah. I always heard that movie was fun.
In a weird way, when me and my wife were watching it, I said to her, it reminds me a lot of like Unforgiven,
Oh, that's cool.
in the sense that Schwarzenegger is playing kind of like an older version of his like murder rampage characters.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what he's really, really good in?
The Aftermath, is that what it's called?
No, Escape Plan.
Really? I've never seen that.
Schwarzenegger's really good.
He did so many movies that no one saw
No, it was-
after leaving the
it was
governorship.
crazy.
It's so weird.
After serving as governor
Yeah.
of the largest economy in the United
Right.
States.
Right. He has become like a sort of like a centrist Republican statesman.
Yeah.
And then makes shitty action
It is
movies.
kind of crazy how hard he dropped the ball because you're like, he's been in office for 8 years. He can come back big. And then he was like, I'm just going to do a couple Lionsgate movies that get released in January and September.
Does STX or Summit have like a check for me maybe?
But you feel like he could have made like his first one back be a big statement.
It was the last. I think he just wanted to do something.
I think he just wanted to work again. Ding dong.
Okay.
Ding
All right.
dong.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Well, you can't just say that. Let me go get the door. It doesn't. Just saying hello when the door is closed doesn't do anything.
Hello.
Okay, keep it in your pants for a second. Let me just get the door, please. Craig? Hi, guys. How's it going?
Hello.
It's me, Larry Bird.
Hey, Larry Bird's back.
What's up, Larry?
Larry Legend.
Ready to burn up the mics. Me, Larry Bird, here to do another Edge of Your Seat ad read.
We know you from the Boston Celtics, from your stewardship of the Indiana Pacers.
Maybe you noticed, I smell incredible right now.
You do. And, you're an athlete.
Yeah.
So I bet sometimes you smell kind of sweaty.
Yeah.
You're a famously stinky guy.
I'm
Right.
a famously stinky man. I smell terrible, but not today. I smell great now with Scentbird.
Ah, Scentbird. That's right. It's a new sponsor of the show. And they get you any kind of cologne or perfume you might like, and give you a sort of subscription service of it where they can give you enough per month that it's not breaking the bank.
That's great. It just shows up in your mailbox, and you don't even have to worry about going out to your local perfumery.
That's right. But also you don't have to do the thing where you like buy a whole freaking bottle of something.
Too
and
much.
You're like, I don't love this. I guess I just blew a ton of money on something that's just going to sit on my shelf. Right?
You want me to hold a whole big bottle of perfume? I can't do that. My hands are reserved for dribbling basketballs.
Fair point. He's an athlete.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's his trade.
That's right.
Guys, if I'm doing too much, you can tell me to tone it down. I don't know if this is
Larry,
too
you're
big for
doing
you
great.
guys.
No,
Okay,
Larry,
thank
you're
you.
Yeah, so new sponsor, Scentbird. They curate and have a huge selection of different kinds of fragrances.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mail order service. It comes right to your door.
It does. And, they're not coming in the big bottles. They're coming in these special Scentbird little spray canisters. I think it's 120 sprays per, so it's enough to apply 4 times daily for a month. You can pick from basically like any cologne or perfume you might be interested in.
That's great because I need to keep my hands open for dribbling. Wait, did I say that one all right? Let me just check my copy here.
And
I tightly script my ad reads.
it means that you can mix things up. If you want to try something new, you just change every month. They'll send you something different. It doesn't really cost you anything. Anything more, to switch it up. And they got 450 designer brands for you to choose.
Look, as a former NBA star, I'm used to getting attention from the ladies. But I'll tell you, with a couple spritzes of Scentbird, I got men and women throwing themselves at me on the street.
Hey, and you're open to everything.
Their bird is very fluid.
So you got Gucci, Tom Ford, Kenneth Cole, Burberry, Prada. They got everything you might want to sample or try. And if you're not sure what kind of scent you're looking for, you can sort by brand, by occasion, by a season, by style. They've got all kinds of like user reviews and ratings to help you figure out what you want. And they even have a true scent quiz that you can do.
I love quizzes. You know, they say that BO is for the birds, but Scentbird is for this bird, Larry Bird.
Okay, now with an exclusive offer for just our listeners, you can get 50% off your first month of Scentbird today. That's only $7.50 for your first fragrance. So you go to scentbird.com/check and use my code CHECK for 50% off your first month. Again, that's scentbird.com/check. You can try your first cologne or perfume for just $7.50.
Maybe I'll tweet about it.
Oh, because Bird, right.
Bird, and then Scentbird is a company, and then tweet is like the sound that a bird makes in their icons.
All right, well, Larry, thank you so much.
See you the next time we have a bird thing.
Bye. But Will Smith in this moment,
Will Smith,
right?
Okay.
He's coming off that thing, and what you were saying was, I mean, which I agree with. It was this unique thing where I don't think anyone has hit this since him. Eddie Murphy certainly had this going on at his peak, and it feels like the baton was kind of passed from Eddie to Will of like king of all media.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's got albums. His TV show is still running in repeats. We watch it all the time.
Of course. Yeah.
Like Fresh Prince
His TV show's, like,
never went out of
canonical.
rotation.
No,
Right.
no.
It was canonical.
Even though, like, is the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air good? Like, I don't think it's that good.
But it's so fucking effective.
Very watchable.
It's
like,
one
to
of the most
this day.
watchable sitcoms ever.
I was obsessed
weirdly.
with it when I was a kid. And
Yeah.
then later I would come to it and I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, right.
He's
It's
just such a compelling screen presence.
is.
He's
Like,
one
he
of the
just,
most
he just,
charismatic performers to ever live. He truly is. Yeah.
Uncle Phil.
That's the other thing. You got all these ringers in the cast.
yeah, James
Like
Avery,
Alfonso
yeah.
Ribeiro rules.
Sure.
James Avery rules.
Definitely.
The guy who plays the butler rules.
He was in, what's it called?
What's his
The
name?
Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. What is his name?
oh, is that
The Chiwetel
Yeah.
Ejiofor movie about, like, the inspirational true story movie about the kid.
The one that he
in,
directed?
The one that
Yeah.
he directed. He's also in it. He's also really good in it because he's a good actor.
Yeah.
The boy who in Malawi who like built a windmill to like re-irrigate his town
Cool.
during a drought, and the chieftain of the town is played by what's his name, Joseph Marcel,
Yeah.
and Jeffrey. And like for like a few acts, I was kind of like, who is this guy? This guy's like got a lot of presence.
Yeah.
Who is he again? And then you realize who he is. And he's great.
That rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
He harnesses the wind.
He
Spoiler
harnesses the
alert.
wind.
You spend like 2 hours being like, see, harness the wind, and then he's
yeah.
like, he finally gets it going.
Yeah, someone got to harness this wind. Stat. Yes, but it was the thing that I think in a pre-social media era, but a point where pop culture was starting to become like massive and promotional opportunities were so broad. Will Smith was one of those guys who would like do everything, and whenever he did anything, he committed the same amount of energy to
Right.
it. So it's like if the guy presented an award at the MTV Movie Awards, it felt like a fucking moment. Like, anytime he appeared on anything, he did like TRL or did a morning show or did late
He was
night.
also the king of kids. Like, all
Right.
kids worshipped him, but
Right.
also he was in Bad Boys or whatever. Like, everyone liked Will Smith.
Everyone loved him. Yeah.
So then he's going to play Muhammad Ali.
Right. So he does this miracle run that sort of ends with Wild Wild West, where he kind of like reassesses what's going on.
Right, because Wild Wild West is actually like not a bomb, right? Well, it's kind of a
it
bomb.
costs so much.
Yeah, it was very expensive. It was a bomb. It was actually, 113 domestic.
It made money in terms
but it like
I'm
cost
sorry,
like twice as
it
much. I think.
grossed money.
Sure.
It lost
Gross.
money.
Right.
Yes. And then he does Bagger Vance, which is a disaster.
I've never seen that movie.
I've never.
Never seen it.
I
Oh,
literally only know it for its reputation
Right.
as
Same.
like the
Right.
sort of-
Magical
right.
Negro,
The Spike.
yeah.
That's
Right,
when
the
Spike
ultimate.
Lee like started saying that publicly. I felt
Right.
like.
I don't know about this.
Well, it's about Matt Damon's like a golfer
He's
who
like an
wants to golf
alcoholic,
good.
broken white man.
Okay, I didn't
I think
realize
he's
it was
an
that bad.
alcoholic.
I just knew he wanted to golf good.
Right. And like,
And he
I think
sees like
Charlize
a-
Theron is like his ignored wife.
Sure.
Okay.
But he's like a your classic like broken man anti-hero who
Right.
can't quit the bottle. I'm pretty sure he's an alcoholic.
No,
in it.
you're probably right. There must be something going on with him.
And then Will Smith appears out of nowhere as a magical caddy.
Will Smith is a magical, but he's like a phantom, right?
And
He's like
and he fixes him and then disappears.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
pretty
think he
much, yeah.
disappears into
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and it was directed by Robert Redford.
It was directed by Robert Redford.
Was it really?
Yes.
Yeah,
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
yeah.
That was a big thing.
But so Hollywood hasn't kept that like problematic sort of like
No, what are you talking about?
characterization.
Green Book won Best Picture. We solved racism.
Oh,
At least he wasn't a phantom in that.
How incredible would that have been? If at the end of Green Book, yeah.
He was
Don
like,
Shirley
Vigo-
steps out into
Vigo-
the snow and then he slowly.
Looks behind him and there's no one there the whole time.
hey, where'd he go?
What if at the end of Green Book there was a
You
montage?
told me I drove all that way for a ghost who can teleport?
What if at the end of Green Book there was a montage where Vigo replayed the trip in his head and it turned out that it was like a player piano? He was throwing chicken wings in the back and they were
Right.
just landing on the
It's
seat.
just a pile of
Yeah.
The Legend of Bagger Vance. It was directed by Robert Redford. It was Robert Redford was picking Damon as his, like, he was like, much like in the 90s where he kept working with Pitt.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, you're my guy. Like, you're the next Redford.
And
then, you know,
and Will Smith, it was like, you're the next like Poitier. I feel like that was the pitch.
God knows, probably.
Right.
God knows how Robert Redford thought about the Legend of Bagger Vance.
And that was in that weird period where like Charlize did tons of failed prestige
She played
projects.
a lot of wives and
was bad in all of them. And it was like, why do people keep hiring her? She's not good in these movies.
Yeah.
And then she immediately became great.
she's so
Like it was
good.
like once she was in good movies
Yeah, she rules.
and they gave her real characters to play rather than long-suffering wives.
Yeah.
But that like Man of Honor, she's like
no,
really
you're,
bad in.
you're right. You're right.
Bagger Vance, she's I think bad in. I think that's the reputation. I mean, none of us will ever watch this movie, but that seemed like
I'm going to watch it.
well, just to prove us
Yeah,
wrong.
exactly.
That felt like that was like the straight down the middle. Like this is Smith. He's gunning for best supporting actor, like Oscar play, and then everyone hated it. And he was like, "Cool, I'm going to make a movie with like integrity."
Right.
And he had been attached to Do Ali for years and years and years. Different people came in and out. Different people wrote scripts. He was always sort of loosely like, I would like to do an Ali movie. And I feel like Ali had publicly said, like, I approve of this casting, which was a big thing.
Right.
But I remember even, like, the little bubbles in, like, the fucking Nickelodeon magazine being like, up next, an Ali movie. Like, they would say, like, when they were doing their profiles, like, in kids' magazines, they'd always be like, and he's trying to make a movie about the world's greatest boxer.
Here are some of the versions of this movie that almost happened.
Yes.
There was a script called Power and Grace, which is a very lame title.
Yep.
That was focused on Ali from age 12 to 40. Probably more of a classic biopic.
Yeah.
A lot about his dad, who is in this movie
Yeah.
but is not a character. Ron Howard was going to direct
Right.
it.
I can know what that movie is.
Exactly.
I can
Yeah.
see
You've
it in
seen
my
like Cinderella Man or
Right.
whatever. Like, yes, I mean, it would have been a very straightforward, I don't know, the friends we made along the way.
But this
kind
is
of
even like
biopic.
Ransom era
Sure.
Ron Howard, you know?
We're like a few
yeah.
years from like Apollo 13 or whatever,
Right.
right? He's sort of like, oh, it's like he could do you a stately biopic.
Right. And this is ironically the year that he wins Best Picture and Best Director. This
That's
same
right.
year.
For making a stately biopic.
Right, right.
About phantoms.
About
Mind
men
phantoms.
who weren't there.
All right. And then during Wild Wild West, and this is nuts.
Yeah.
Will Smith says to Barry Sonnenfeld, like, make Ali. Like,
You should do
here's
it.
the script. We're
You're
going to make
clearly
Ali.
the guy to make
You,
Ali.
Barry Sonnenfeld. Who I like Barry Sonnenfeld.
I do too.
I enjoyed Men in Black. I enjoyed the Addams Family
I think we
movies.
love all of his movies up to Wild Wild West.
Right, and then he never recovers, right?
No.
He doesn't make like another good movie.
We like always consider covering him on the podcast because we like those first four
right.
so much.
Addams Family Values, Get Shorty, Men in Black. Like,
Right.
that's great.
Right,
That's a great first four.
right. And then the rest of them are
Wild Wild West, Big Trouble, Men in Black 2, RV, Men in Black 3. and then
Nine Lives.
The one where Kevin Spacey's a cat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me on that last one.
Well, Kevin Spacey, we all know him,
He's a bad dad. He loves his career and he doesn't spend enough time with his kids.
which, of course, is
So
an all-new plot.
Does he become a cat to spend time with his kids and then learns the
I
value
think
of
he's
being a father?
cursed into cathood.
He is
that
cursed by
correct?
Christopher Walken. I believe his kids demand that they adopt a cat, and he goes, and Christopher Walken, essentially playing the same role he played in Click, is like, I got a very special cat for you.
Okay, right. And he's the cat.
This cat's got real soul. It's your soul. And then he turns Kevin Spacey into the cat. And I think the kids think the dad's on a work trip.
Okay.
I tried watching this once.
Right.
Jennifer Garner, I believe, plays Kevin Spacey's wife.
This is a good reminder of
correct.
however much I think I watch a lot of movies. There's
There's
just
a
a whole
lot
world
of
of
movies
movies that I will never see or hear of.
Yes, in Australia, as we all know, Nine Lives was titled Mr. Fuzzy Pants.
Better title.
I
better
believe
title.
this was a Europa Corp movie.
I think you're right.
When like Luc Besson raised a ton of money and was like, we're a studio now, we're going to finance our own movies, and we're not just going to make Besson films, we're going to make family films. And he made this disastrous movie that cost like $60 million.
Yeah, because everyone figured Kevin Spacey, perfect lead for a family film. It's crazy.
Right.
It's a crazy thing
But
to
the
do.
whole movie is
Anyway,
like CGI cat with internal Kevin Spacey monologue a la Garfield.
yeah,
Being like,
right.
they really expect me to eat that?
That kind of stuff.
Right.
Anyway, he could have made
The cat just
Ali.
constantly monologues.
He didn't get to
You and
make-
I both know there are no crimes in art.
Now,
Let me be catty.
Columbia
Ben's
still
giving me a thumbs up.
Columbia still has the movie. This is
Yeah.
a Columbia movie.
Right. And Will
Wild
Smith,
West flops.
Columbia sort of was becoming one of Will Smith's home studios.
It is his home studio.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Until recently.
Yes.
Wild West flops. Sonnenfeld is fired, or whatever.
Yeah.
Is gently
Mhm.
nudged aside. Michael Mann he's just made The Insider.
So
he's
now
brought on board
he
with
seems
Eric
like an
Roth.
Oscar guy.
Yeah, Eric
Yeah.
Roth, who wrote The Insider with him. They're going to redo the script. Michael Mann declines. He was going to make The Aviator. Turns it down to make this movie.
Yeah.
He was going to make Shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he was really going to make Shooter. It says here that he was
I think
planning
he was
to make
going
Shooter.
to adapt the book. I don't think it would have resembled the Shooter movie we got in any way.
The Shooter movie's pretty bad.
And there's another one they said he turned.
Savages. Which
Right.
Oliver Stone eventually made.
Right.
Which I've never seen.
But that's this other thing in the 90s. Mann keeps on developing biopics that don't go anywhere. He becomes one of these guys who just does years and years of research. He wanted to make a James Dean movie for a long time.
Sure.
The Howard Hughes thing was always floating around. Like, and he hasn't made a biopic up until this point.
Right.
But he's one of these guys where if like he finds
The
a person
Insider is kind of a biopic.
A little bit.
It's a true story movie.
I'd say it's a little more of a true story movie.
But yeah, it's kind of a biopic.
Right.
And Manhunter's kind of a biopic. No, I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
So he totally rewrites the script, as far as I know. I think him and Roth like wrote the script.
Yeah.
They're given a $105 million budget.
Big movie.
They shot it all over New York, Chicago, Mozambique is where
Yeah.
they shot a lot of the stuff that's set in Zaire. And Will Smith trained for a year as a boxer. And
He looks good. He looks good. Like
looks
the
great.
physicality and like the performance of the fighting is well done.
Really well done. And
Yeah.
then the movie came out, and it was a box office disappointment. And I feel like people were just like, yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like cold.
yeah, it's kind of chilly and long. Not
Right.
into it.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't
Reviews were very bad.
know. Yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So my thing at this time.
And it gets 2 Oscar nominations, which were both surprises. People did not think it was going to get Oscar nominations. It kind of sort of...
I feel like the Void thing was a total surprise, and Will Smith went from being like the presumed front runner to being
he
like
snuck
he's
in.
on the bubble. He's
Yeah.
maybe 5 or 6.
Also, because 2001's like a really big year.
Yeah.
Like, that's Lord of the Rings, obviously, but also
Beautiful
like...
Mind.
Beautiful Mind, Moulin Rouge. These
Right.
are in the bedroom, like,
What's the 5th Best Picture nominee?
Gosford Park, of course.
Oh,
But like that's the year of like Mulholland Drive,
Monsters Ball, Training Day.
Monsters Ball,
Yeah, this was a
Training
big year.
Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ali. So you did not see Ali in theaters.
Not see Ali in theaters.
So you saw it in your Man sort of rewatch.
Right.
I assume you did not see Ali in theaters.
I saw Ali in theaters.
Oh, okay.
I
All
saw
right.
the shit out of Ali in theaters.
All right, congratulations.
I have a very visceral memory of seeing Ali in theaters right when cold season was starting or really hitting in the doldrums of December.
This movie came out Christmas Day, which is a very bad
That's a
time
very
Yeah.
strange. I would have imagined this is sort of like a April movie.
that would probably have been a better time to release this movie. Almost any time would have been a better time.
Christmas.
Summer you could do.
I believe I saw this movie on December 26th. Like, I
Sure.
feel like I
Yeah.
saw this movie the day after Christmas with just my mom and I,
Yeah.
which was weird that I didn't see it with my dad and my brother.
It is weird.
They maybe had already seen it.
Maybe, but your brother's little. Maybe they. Who knows? Who knows?
He saw this
I'm
shit
sure he
in
saw it.
theater.
I'm sure. I'm
Yes.
not disrespecting James E. Newman's
Please.
viewing of Ali.
How dare you disrespect James?
Sure.
Newman. But I saw it with my mom, and I have this very visceral memory of, for a very long academic film, that I had been blowing my nose too much in the days before, my runny nose, and my nose was very chapped watching Ali.
This is your visceral memory.
And I still enjoyed it, despite the fact that I was like actively like
itchy nose,
the
fact that it was like 2 hours and 45
Right,
minutes.
I remember being very engrossed by it, which I found surprising, especially when people were writing it off as like, yeah, the thing kind of doesn't work.
Right.
Now, my father, big boxing fan. My father wanted to be a sports broadcaster. We talked about this, but he did a thing called Sports Phone. That was what gambling addicts would call up if they wanted the scores of the games that had just happened. They needed a quick answer. Before the internet, they couldn't wait until the paper to find out whether or not they were going to have to go on the run. My father was also a gambling addict at this time. He was Precision Pete Newman, and he did that, and he wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And then he got his one-on-camera shot, which is he hosted a documentary called, I think, Muhammad Ali, One More Miracle. That was about him coming out of retirement in the mid-'80s.
Which is one, like, because he would always come out of retirement to make more money, and it was kind of sad.
It was
he was too old.
It was the worst one. It was the worst one.
It
and so
was like the one where everyone was like, what manager is like making him do this? It's on Vimeo. You can watch it.
I believe my father is the one who uploaded it. Is that possible? Can you check?
Jeez.
Peter Newman.
Yep, thank you. He had it digitized.
Right.
But it's Muhammad Ali, kind of chonky.
He looks a little chonky.
With a mustache, and there's my father, full Jufro, interviewing Muhammad Ali.
Your dad was so Albert Brooksy.
Brooksy.
I know your dad now, obviously,
yes.
but...
Howie Mandel, also people on the street would stop him and yell, "Hey Mandel, you think you're too big for me?" Because he refused to sign autographs. He'd be like, "I'm not Howie." They go, oh, what, Mandel, you get on TV a couple times and now you think... People would get angry at him. But this is my father's profile picture on LinkedIn. On every thing is him interviewing Ali here, because that was like his moment of pride, and he watched the thing and he was like, I suck on camera. My father, you might notice in this shot, all you see is the back of his head. Like, he couldn't figure out how to be on camera.
Yeah.
You're looking at like a Brillo pad.
That's really true. This is not how you set this up.
No. So Muhammad Ali was like a very big figure in my childhood. His regular bar in the 80s, before my mother made him quit gambling in order to, as a condition for them getting married, was this place called Jimmy's Corner in right off of Times Square. That is still my favorite bar in New York City. That is this guy, Jimmy Glenn, who is like a boxing corner man. And the bar is just filled with like incredible actual boxing memorabilia. And the fun thing about Jimmy's Corner is it's on like 45th off of Broadway. Right. And you're like, how does this place afford to stay open in Times Square in this day and age with beers that cost $2.50?
Sure.
And the answer is, I found out many years later that Jimmy did a favor for the patriarch of the family that owns the real estate. And that patriarch promised that as long as he was alive, Jimmy's rent would never go up.
Wow.
And the name of that family was Durst.
Oh, great. But the daddy Durst, right? Not the
Ultimate
bad
Papa
son,
Durst.
right?
Ultimate Papa Durst. But flash forward. I'm young. My brother, very physical, big sporto, has a lot of aggression. I have a lot of sadness in me and don't like moving. Hate the feel of air on my skin.
I can sympathize with this a lot.
Right?
You don't like air on your skin. Fair enough.
Too much.
Sure.
My brother and I will fight all the time. I will fight verbally. He will fight.
He'll just sort of leap on you and
start wailing. Yeah. And then I'll just scream, and then my parents will come and break us up. Right. And it was a very weird dynamic in my childhood where my parents would be like, you have to punch him back.
Right. Exactly. Right.
And my parents were constantly trying to encourage me to punch my brother.
Rather than saying to you, they're just like, James is going to punch you. It's going to happen.
They were like, we're trying to deal with the James punching thing. We can't figure out how to because he would wail on other kids too if he got
energetic.
He was like Tasmanian Devil.
Sure.
And he just couldn't kind of express himself. And now my brother is a very well-adjusted person.
Yeah, your brother's great.
But at the time, he had a lot of energy. So my parents, in trying to figure out a way to get me to defend myself, had me start taking boxing lessons with Jimmy Glenn.
Boy.
Oh, wow.
This real corner man at like a boxing gym that smelled like 12 ball sacks.
That's what all boxing gyms
the worst smelling place. And I was like 9 years old. And once a week after school, my dad would pick me up, and I'd have to box with a bunch of old sweaty men. Jesus. And I hated it.
Oh, you didn't like that? You weren't into it?
Hated it.
It wasn't really your vibe?
So much.
God,
and the only benefit to it was that afterwards, because my father had to go back to work and do more work after that,
Sure.
he would bring me back to his office before we went home, and my dad had the internet in his office, which we didn't have at home.
No.
So I was like, I just got to punch an old guy for an hour, and then I can go to the Lego website. That was like my life for like 2 years. So I was like in a weird boxing world.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't like it at all.
But you were at least being told the basics of boxing.
And I was like living it, and I was seeing these guys, and they were explaining to me the psychology of the whole thing. And my brother was so jealous that I got to do it. And then this weird thing happened, which was simultaneously, my parents finally listened to my pleas and stopped making me take boxing lessons.
Sure.
And they took the risk of letting James take boxing lessons, and James totally leveled out.
Right, because all his energy could be expended.
The strategy of the whole thing, and he's become the least violent person in the world.
Yeah, he's very chill. Your brother's pretty chill.
He's very chill. And my brother almost became a professional boxer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He got his Golden Gloves license. He is a 5'6" Jew. There was a narrow category in which he could have had a career.
There are little boxers, right?
There are.
Featherweights and all that.
And they were like, this is the best Jewish boxer we've seen since. He's got a lot of energy, and my brother's got kind of a good body build despite being a short guy.
Right.
And he was really smart about sort of the chess game of boxing, the psychology of the whole thing. But so this movie has a weird importance in my family. Because this was happening in the nexus of all of these things, It's like when my brother wants to be a boxer, and I hate that I'm still going to boxing lessons. This movie maybe comes out right when that handover is happening. Right. So I was just fully engrossed by it. I hadn't seen a Michael Mann movie before.
Sure.
I don't know if I'd ever seen this
I had seen the inside.
unconventional biopic before.
Yeah.
I certainly was a hardcore Oscar kid at this point, where if something was tapped in that kind of way.
And you like Will Smith.
And I love Will Smith. But I just remember being very engrossed by this thing and the sort of how much it was a sort of time and place political struggle movie.
Yeah.
I think I was worried it was going to be a sports film.
I mean, in
retrospect,
retrospect, watching Ali, knowing that 2001 is 9/11 happens, and then the next couple years of American society, it's just sort of, and I grew up in a very heavily military place. Where I grew up, it was the kind of place where if in 2002 you said, I don't know, maybe if going to war is a good idea, people are going to slit your tires. They're going to beat the shit out of you. Right. And so just thinking about this movie and that focuses on this particular part of Ali's life.
It was poorly timed, perhaps.
Not just poorly, but just it kind of in this weird way anticipates where American culture is about to be.
Yeah.
Very, very soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, this movie kind of goes over everything that the next 8 years would be arguing about in American culture.
Totally.
It is. I feel like one of the earlier examples of we're not going to try to make a complete biopic. We're going to just focus in on a thing.
Right, let's sort of pick out sort of a chunk of his life and focus on it. Right. We're not going to have a scene that starts with him as a 10-year-old. And his dad's like, all right, Cassius, here are my hands. You got to hit him. That's a jab.
Right. And you compare this to
I always wanted to be the greatest.
Right, exactly. Or he's born and his mother's like, let's call him Cassius Clay.
Right.
Yeah. But he can change it later if he'd like.
Right. Which is Ray a couple of years later.
Ray
makes
is
a fuck
100%
ton of money
Ray
and
is
gets all the Oscar nominations and is the most didactic
Right, let's just lay it end to end. He started here and he ended here. Let's make and let's
and
have
it
the
ends
last
with him
scene,
getting the key to Georgia.
Literally him being they're like, and now Georgia on my mind is the state song of Georgia.
Right.
And you freeze and he turns into a painting.
Right. It's people still wanted that. Even critics seemingly wanted more of that. And this is a weird example because it's not.
I think the stakes of this were so high. This was the Ali movie,
right?
And I think people were kind of like, "This is what you did for the Ali movie."
I think it was burned by the idea of they're going to make the definitive Ali life story.
And Ali is he's a long life.
Yes.
It's probably a standard biopic would be really boring and really choppy. You'd have to just sort of okay, and now he did this fight. Now, right?
You'd have to, if you were going to do a standard biopic and not have it be 4 hours long, you'd have to sort of
just jump.
His first 10 years of his life is half the movie, and then sort of everything between that and sort of the 90s is 20 minutes.
Yeah, and all the political stuff would be very fast.
Yeah.
It would be like one scene he's like, well, I'm not going to Vietnam. And then like 2 minutes later, it's
Right.
like, we got the call. You're all clear.
Where it's like the first
you can do the rumble in the jungle now.
the first 45 minutes of this movie, Malcolm X is essentially a co-lead.
Yeah,
right.
I'd argue they have near equal
so
screen
good.
times. He's so good.
I think when I was just watching this
Yeah.
on the way up to New York, I was like, this is maybe the best performance of Malcolm X on film.
I think it's the most accurate.
Right,
I mean, like
It's a very
Denzel's incredible.
Sorry, I forgot about Denzel.
But that's the thing. It's like
Hey,
Denzel.
listeners, I saw Malcolm X. Great film. I love it.
But I mean,
Ignore Denzel.
Denzel's, he's great in Malcolm X.
Yes.
And it is kind of crazy to think, right, there was like, we're going to have to do Malcolm X like only a few years removed from this very sort of definitively regarded performance.
Yeah.
But Denzel's very big.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
very charismatic. He's playing younger Malcolm X, who is much less sort of, stately.
I mean, that movie
and-
is far more conventional in covering like almost everything.
Right. Well,
You
that
know?
movie
It's
is
a
just
great
likely
movie.
like it's going to be long. That
Right.
movie's 4 hours long.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't
yeah.
it?
I think it is.
It's
yeah.
like
it's
very
over
long.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say, let me amend my previous
Okay.
statement. I'll say that this performance of Malcolm X captures a side of Malcolm X that you don't normally get in performances of Malcolm X.
That's I think is the big
Sort
one.
of the very introspective,
Incredibly
very searching.
introspective.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because
You
people,
expect him to come in and be right, just being like spouting lines and sort of have with one-liners about I only like my coffee. The only integration I like is in my coffee. Like
Right.
jokes and sort of
people tend to front and center the righteous anger,
Sure.
which I think is also part of the continuing narrative of trying to make Malcolm X seem scary.
Sure. Right.
And I think with Spike Lee and Denzel Washington, those are both angry guys. I think they were trying to make a very accurate biopic that still is.
But that movie gets to the sort of quieter
Oh,
part.
it
just
totally
gets
does.
to it. It just
totally
takes
does.
a while.
Right, but they are both, very like outsized.
But I feel when Ali's
emotional-
meeting Malcolm
yeah.
X is when Malcolm X is sort of like, am I into this? He's
Right.
at that point
Right.
is right where he's like,
Yeah.
is this working? Like,
Which is very shocking to see, and also Mario Van Peebles is an actor who usually plays it pretty cool.
Yeah.
You don't usually see this much vulnerability out of him. So to see him doing that, and to see him doing that in service of this character who we've never seen this sort of vulnerable and self-doubting. Like this
I
scene,
love him, but what's the deal with him?
I don't know.
Why does he mostly make like junky action movies,
Right.
and then occasionally he'll be like, by the way, like I am like a proper actor who like is
After Badass, I
huge
thought
well
he
of
was going to
talent.
have
Right,
this
yeah.
like career revival because and he directs that too, and it's so good. And then he's sort of gone back to doing like,
and then he's like, great, can I do the Carlito's Way sequel?
Right.
Can I do?
or he's like directed a bunch of the like straight to VOD Nick Cage movies. Like he's got a very weird career.
I don't have a lot of takes on Mario Van Peebles. So
Yeah.
he's great in this movie.
Yeah, he's great in this movie, and that scene where Ali is like, I can't talk to you.
The one in the outside the hotel.
Yeah.
Yes. I thought
That seems brutal.
it's very brutal.
You're like, I've never seen anyone depict Malcolm X as low status before.
And
Right.
just
Which is kind of
low
shocking.
status,
Yeah.
dejected,
Kind
Right.
of depressed.
Yeah.
Right.
Like without purpose in a way, like or like looking for a purpose, whereas you
Yeah.
think of him as such a like leader of a movement, and here he's kind of like, oh, I can't hang out with you guys. Yeah, I guess. Right.
Right. I mean, that's this immediate interesting thing with the movie is you go like the first 10 minutes are cutting back and forth between Sam Cooke performing
That shit's so good.
and
The
like
opening of this movie
Will
is
Smith just
electrifying.
running through
I
the
think it's
street.
some of the best filmmaking Mann's ever done.
It's so good. It's so good. I really like Ali. I do think it can never quite match the
No.
energy of that
No.
first half hour.
But it is one of those things where you go, those 10 minutes, you're like, okay, people are sitting down. It's the biggest movie star in the world.
Sure.
Making a biopic of one of the most beloved Americans, who now we all accept he was always in the right, right? Like,
It's kind of
Who among us ever didn't like Muhammad Ali?
right. Well, it's one of the-
that is definitely true. That everyone's
there's
like,
that thing like Colin Kaepernick where they're like, this is not the right way to be a political athlete. Muhammad
Right.
Ali never did anything like this. And people are like, ahem.
sure.
But that's the other kind of crazy thing is this movie like is just relitigating all the times that America was angry at Muhammad Ali and being like, you gotta live with this shit. But the first 10 minutes to be like, oh, we're starting here?
Sure.
Like we're starting like this late into his career.
Mm-hmm.
We're not seeing the build.
No.
It's starting right before he wins the title.
Yeah.
Which
the
like
Liston fight, which is like Ali was the sort of brash, people were like, oh, this guy's too mouthy, you know, he's all talk, and Sonny Liston was seen as this sort of like, oh, he's like an upstanding athlete. That's the kind of guy we should,
Don't you think, though, most people would have made the film that started with him like walking into the gym for the first time and ended with him winning this title?
The Olympics is sort of his first like coming out moment when he wins the gold in 1960.
I also don't think a more conventional version of the story would have included the kind of, I think, still today kind of surprising stuff of him encountering the picture of Emmett Till as a kid and sort of the radical, basically his story of radicalization of like becoming very politically disillusioned and kind of disconnected from kind of mainstream Black politics.
Well, and it's also this movie about like celebrity. It's about so much the like, what is your responsibility as a celebrity? The thing that keeps on being brought up of the like, I thought you wanted to be like the people's champion.
Right.
Sure.
We
were talking about this about how Public Enemy sort of has that strain to it too. Right.
Yeah.
Of like, how America kind of lionizes and then bites back, and sometimes in the same motion, right? I
mean, I don't think it's just on this theme. Like, a thing that stuck out to me is just the fact that Jeffrey Wright's character is always present with the camera, always documenting, and even the Malcolm X character always has a camera with him.
Yes, right.
And that shit's not an accident about what the movie's trying to say about sort of how the world perceives you, your responsibility to the world, all of that.
And from minute one, I mean, he's fighting obviously, but like we're seeing like. The fact that his relationship with Howard Cosell is so important, and like it's like one of the more emotionally like truthful relationships in his life.
And
even though mostly it's just them doing bits, like
But not only that, I would say it's one of the more sort of vulnerable, intimate relationships depicted in any Michael Mann movie.
That's
romantic or not. Like, you rarely have friendship in Michael Mann movies.
True.
It's usually uneasy alliances.
Usually friendship in Michael Mann movies is sort of like, I respect you.
Right.
I would shoot you if I had to, but I respect what you do. You're a professional.
And
obviously, I want to murder you.
Right. And love in Michael Mann movies, like sexual love, is usually like a woman chewing out a man, and the man going like, I can't disagree.
Whereas this movie, Jada Pinkett is
with
like,
the exception of Last of the Mohicans,
right? Which is actually quite a swooning movie, and he hasn't seen that.
I will have seen it by the time you've listened to this episode.
But you're right. That's like him in this much swoonier mode that is unusual for him, but. In this movie, Jada Pinkett especially is like really sexy. Like that's sort of like the thing with her.
Yeah.
She's forward and she's like, her own person. And, Muhammad Ali's like, I've never met anyone like you. Like, she's exciting. Like, she's only in the movie for like 5 minutes, but she's so exciting.
All three of his lovers in this film have far more agency than most Michael Mann women, because they all kind of actively pursue him.
Right.
But yes, I do think the whole reason why he starts it with this guy just doing his sort of methodical running right before he's going to have, the first massive, potentially life-changing match of his life, is because he's interested in what responsibility does this guy have the second he's placed on that stage. Like, he's not interested in what Muhammad Ali had to do to get to that moment.
Sure. Because
the movie he's interested in is, here's a guy, it's like some are born great, some have greatness thrust upon them. Yeah. Like, here's a guy who innately is, much like Will Smith, so charismatic, so beautiful, so smart, so engaging, so funny, and then he also is this incredibly gifted athlete. And that places him at the center of the culture. And this guy, in that moment, trying to wrestle with how he feels about the culture and his own identity and what he wants to do with that position in terms of trying to change that for other people, which I think just throws everyone off. That it's like, here's a movie where you like have boxing scenes that are very long and very visceral, and don't have a lot of catharsis in them.
No, I think they're probably trying to get the sort of actual details of the fights, down,
and those are like
when you see the Rumble in the Jungle, and as like. Everyone who anyone who knows boxing knows that was kind of a boring fight.
Right.
Because it's so much of Ali just taking a pounding and just waiting. Like,
And I feel like
it's not like Creed where it's like, holy shit. Every second of this is like, my body's on fire and he's like dodging and it's so cool. It's just like punch, 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 wrap him up, punch, punch, punch over and over again.
But that's real boxing.
Right.
I know.
That's strategy.
Boxing is kind of boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also feel like that's watching this. I was like, what are the reasons why boxing films are so successful? It's weird that there is that much success in boxing as opposed to other sports, considering boxing's popularity in relation to other sports. But I think it's the fact that it is a solitary sport.
Yes.
That you only have to track 2 people.
Yeah.
So you could do a binary, like here's who you're rooting for, here's their opponent. You don't have to deal with a bunch of people on a field. And the other thing is, because it is just 2 people in a ring, you can kind of choreograph boxing and make it sort of static in the same way you can with like a musical number.
Right.
You know?
Totally.
And you can build those sort of emotional arcs into it.
Yeah, and also boxing ends when you knock someone out. I mean, it doesn't have to, but it can.
Right, but there's a
that's,
clear
so triumphant.
catharsis. Right.
And brutal.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. This movie like leans on the brutality of just like, you're in this really tight, you're hearing their breathing.
I mean, and this is one of the things I just find interesting about the movie is sort of like Mann kind of experimenting with digital
Oh
photography.
my god, he switches between so many formats in that.
I forgot he was doing it this early.
And in those
so
fights,
grainy.
like the most visceral like hits, he films in digital.
Yes.
Or like uses the footage from the digital photography, which creates this very interesting effect of you're kind of in this like warm cinematic fight, and all
then
of
you
a
cut
sudden
to their perspective.
Yeah, all of a sudden, just like what the fuck,
right?
Like that. It's very weird.
Because that's like I think the big thing he's experimenting with digital is just like, how do I make this more aggressive?
Yeah,
you know, how do I take the varnish off of this and place people in these like uncomfortable worlds that I'm interested in?
You never get that close.
No,
when you're like at the event or watching it on TV, and it really it's
Ben,
so
do you
visceral.
Like boxing? Are you a big
love
boxing fan?
Yeah.
I didn't know this about you.
Yeah, I didn't. I couldn't. Our family didn't afford like pay-per-view or HBO, so I didn't really get to watch it growing up. But I love boxing, and I boxed many years when I was living in Jersey City.
You boxed many
You've
years?
got the frame for it. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
you do look like one of the guys that Rocky beats at the beginning of Rocky.
Right.
Yeah,
you look like Spider Rico.
I was thinking more of one of the guys in like the gym Matt Murdock goes to in Daredevil.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that's a compliment.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah,
but yeah, I love boxing. So I was really into this movie. I'd never seen it before. And,
wow!
And the visual filmmaking of all the fights, those close-ups, and just the tight sort of framing was so cool to see.
I also think the lack of music during the fights, because he uses music so well in the rest of the movie, and then the fights he's really making you live with, like, you barely hear like crowd cheering or anything like that. Like, that's toned down, and it's just like the dull sound of the punches and their sort of breathing and the steps.
There's also they never cut to like the corner guy being like, oh no, he's got to do this, or like you know what I mean, like. Even when there's the thing in his eye, which is something that happened during the Liston fight that he couldn't see all of a sudden, and they never know if that was like sabotage or just some weird shit that happened. Right. Like, you kind of know that that's happening, but you don't really get why it's stopped. Like, it's just all being replicated for you.
All
You
these
deal
characters,
with it.
like the
Ron Silver,
Paul Rodriguez,
looking amazing,
Jeffrey Wright.
Silver.
Between the three of them,
and Jamie Foxx looking insane.
Oh yeah,
looking great.
But Jamie Foxx has like dialogue scenes.
No, he does. But you're right.
Those other three guys
Jeffrey
are
Wright. He's always in it. Rarely talks. He's playing a guy who is famously a stutterer and didn't talk much.
Right,
and
was
when he
sort
does
of
talk, you hear him.
Muhammad Ali's biographer.
Yeah, he was kind of like the documentarian of the crew. Right. Who was always around.
Ron Silver, who was like his corner man.
Angelo Dundee.
Right, I was gonna say like those three characters probably have less than 10 lines of dialogue between them in a 3-hour movie.
Right, and they are, if you were saying like, oh, I'm going to make an Ali movie, they're all characters you'd be like, well, they're going to be pivotal.
Right. And they're in almost every scene, like as you said.
Ever present.
You're like, Jeffrey Wright must have worked almost every single day on this movie.
But this is such an ever-present movie.
Right.
Where it's like, even Ali is sort of like inscrutable in his, like, you're always with him.
Right.
We're staying with him.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have like monologues where he, explains what's going on in his head or anything like that, right?
Right, and you're so happy that like Dundee doesn't have a scene where he's like outside on a smoke break and he talks to Jada Pinkett and he's like, I'm worried about him for the first time.
Right, that shit. Wait, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, to the extent that sort of like we get any like real interiority with Ali, it's like during the physical moments, like when he's running, when he's fighting, sort of that's when you kind of get into his head.
Because those are the moments that he's like not performing.
Or sometimes when he's with women, like especially the sort of early meetings with all of the with Nona Gay, with Michelle.
Right.
Michelle, is that how you say
Michael Michelle? I always thought it was Michael Michelle.
It might be, it must be.
Yeah, I always thought that Nona Gay was going to be a big star. And
Michael
then
Michelle. What am I here?
Yeah.
She's on ER. How dare I disrespect her?
Yes.
Played the most boring character in the history of ER.
Eric LaSalle's wife?
Yeah, but she's like a doctor. She's in it for like 3 years.
Right.
Dr. Finch.
That was my mom. ER was the only show she watched. My mom was like a TV is trash person, but she watched ER every week. And when Michael Michelle came on screen, she went like, "Oh, Jesus Christ!"
She was a real bummer on ER.
Yeah.
My mom did not see this movie. I saw this movie with my dad. My dad was obsessed with Muhammad Ali. I feel like most people that age,
My
baby boomer father
is obsessed
yes.
with Michael.
just with Muhammad Ali, just the most important athlete of their generation, and probably of like America.
I mean, I think fair to say like ever.
I think so.
Probably the most consequential. Which is funny because
in every sense,
he was just a boxer.
Yeah,
he lost fights too. He had that sort of weird end of his career, you know. But
he did a Peter Newman documentary. I mean, you can't go much lower than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's such a weird sport too. The
Yes,
tradition
right,
of
weird
it.
sport.
Like and like seeing it in that time, and like my parents growing up, they watched the fights. Like it was just such a ever present part of like America's culture.
Well, that's the other thing is that most boxers are viewed as scary. Like the reputation is like this guy's fucking intense,
hulking and powerful, and they talk with their fists.
But I feel like since like Lennox Lewis, like, or I guess Pacquiao is like kind of the new standout. Like his fights
Floyd Mayweather,
and with Mayweather, who sucks. He's like the exact kind of boxer where it's like not interesting to watch.
No,
he's like a points guy.
Right. All these guys are just kind of like bulldogs, you know?
Yeah, I grew up in Britain.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, all right.
Wait, so wait a second. This movie, wait, you go see it on Boxing Day?
I actually did.
Except for you, it's literally Boxing Day.
You know what? I probably
I saw it on Boxing Day.
But in Britain, boxing is such a big deal.
Well, they named it day after.
And Lennox Lewis was probably the last British boxing hero.
Sure.
And everyone in Britain always knew he sucked. Like, he didn't suck. He was good. He was a good boxer. But like when he had a glass jaw. Like he got punched one time, he fell right down, and that was it.
Right.
And he was never the same again. And everyone in Britain, even though we all loved Lennox Lewis, we were like, yeah, he was never like for real in the way that like
and
this,
also
like
like
Ali was.
none of those boxers ever connected in the same way as people outside of the ring. Like it was only ever exciting when they got back in. The only other guy who had the same kind of cultural weight was Tyson, and that was like revulsion. It was like, what's this guy's fucking deal?
Sure.
Who is this guy?
You'd have to for something comparable to Ali, you'd have to go back to the beginning of the 20th century with what's his name?
You mean boxing wise?
Boxing wise.
Yeah, I know who you're thinking of.
Black guy, dated white women.
Joe Louis.
And it's sort of a similar kind of reason why. Like Joe Louis connected to.
He was like the first black athlete to connect with non-black people, right? Like, to connect with white people in America, right? Like,
yeah, pretty much
inarguable.
And sort of he was a fast talker, like he was transgressive, and sort of Ali in the same way, kind of like there's racial flashpoint in the United States, and he kind of like basically channels it through sports,
which is right.
And that dynamic doesn't really like exist anymore. I mean, that's why Kaepernick is like the closest possible thing you could think of now.
Sure. And the thing about Kaepernick is that he is like, no one would say like, well, this is also like inarguably the best football player alive.
Yeah.
Like,
could you imagine the president weighing in on him like not wanting?
You think Trump would have something to say about this guy?
Yeah.
That
was the point I was trying
Trump
to make.
is like, didn't Trump? He did some fucking Muhammad Ali thing.
I'm sure
did he?
He did. I swear to God, I can't remember because it was 87,000 terrible things ago. But he did one of those things where he like.
Oh, he pardoned him.
That
was it. Yeah, right. He gave him the posthumous prize. I forgot about that.
Right, and sort of around the same time as the Colin Kaepernick thing.
Sure.
He was like criticizing Colin Kaepernick and then gave Muhammad Ali the pardon.
That was less than a year ago.
Yeah, that happened
Jesus
like recently. 100%, and like he did that, and no one it's not like anyone was like, oh, thank you, that's good, we really were waiting on that.
But then he also hid behind that of like, I'm not a racist, I pardoned Muhammad Ali. It's like,
who
after
is dead.
he died, you fucking piece of shit. You don't get points for that.
Oh boy, but you're right. He's channeling so much of what's happening in America through boxing, which is a very specific thing.
Yeah.
Well, and it's this thing, as as you sort of said, like, I don't know anything about sports, but there are the people who like cross over into just like the general culture where I have to know about that. And like Kaepernick is someone who I only know as a political figure. Of
course.
I had never heard his name as an athlete before.
Right.
If LeBron James was taking the same stands that Kaepernick took, then that would have the sort of import of Muhammad Ali.
Right.
But the fact that Muhammad Ali is someone where like I, as a child who hated sports in this time period, still would have probably liked watching this guy on TV.
Right.
Do interviews, you know?
Right.
I would have bought a fistful of fries.
It's just more exciting. But I don't like UFC. I find it really boring. Like,
UFC's very boring.
I'm not into it.
I've never watched it. It seems too
I
much for me.
loved Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey was like the only athlete I have been personally invested in, and I would watch her fucking fights.
Right.
And one of the things I liked about them was that they were always short.
Right.
That I knew it would, like, I wouldn't have to engage with it for too long.
Because her whole thing was that she would knock you out in 5 seconds.
But I would like go to the bar and watch the 5 like Warren fights and be like, cool, I'm just gonna keep talking to people. And then Rousey would get on, I'd be so locked in for like 3 minutes, and I'd be like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. But then it was depressing when she like then started, slipping.
It was like Lennox Lewis.
It was
She
instantaneous.
lost, and that was that.
Right.
Yeah.
She was like, and then never could
She
fight
never
again.
got it back. Yeah.
Right. Ding dong.
Who knew? Okay.
Ding dong.
Who's at the door?
Oh my God! It's our old friend, the cineast cow.
Again?
By popular demand.
Really?
Yeah, people went insane for the cineast cow.
Now
It's a cow that appreciates real cinema.
does it like curated streaming services that show exceptional films from around the globe?
It's pretty much the only thing this cow likes.
Put the microphone up to it.
Moby. Moby.
There we go. It's kind of building up steam there.
Moby.
So this cow probably knows that with Mubi, every film that appears on the streaming service is hand-selected. You don't have to spend your time looking around for great things to watch. There's just a new movie every day to check out and a movie going away every day.
Yeah, I mean, this
So there's
cow
a time limit.
knows that like the back of its hoof.
Okay. Well, how about the fact that they just put Ken Russell's Lair of the White Worm. Ken Russell's Lair of the White Worm. Have you ever seen that movie? It's so good.
Have I seen it? No, let me ask the cow. The cow's saying yes, it has seen it. I think the cow's a Ken Russell completist.
Yeah, it's a crazy Ken Russell movie that's sort of like a joke Hammer movie. It's got like a young Hugh Grant.
Oh, that sounds
It's got
rad.
crazy vampire coven.
Yeah.
All sorts of, phallic symbols. It is a Ken Russell movie.
Oh, it's got some peens in it?
Yeah.
Peen adjacent imagery?
They have Steven Soderbergh's Che movies, Gorilla and the Argentine.
Yes.
If you're feeling doing a 4 or 5 hour Che
I
experience.
think over 5, yeah.
Very long.
Yeah.
Very interesting. You have Christian Mungu's Beyond the Hills about a bunch of nuns. Definitely a crowd pleaser. That is a really good movie. But,
I mean, look, here's the thing with Mubi. Maybe these movies sound great to you. In which case, you should sign up right now because they're going to be up there for less than 30 days.
Exactly.
Or maybe these movies don't sound
You
great
best
to you.
hurry.
But guess what? Sign up tomorrow. There'll be a new movie replacing one of them.
That's right. They've always got cool stuff going on. And you can try Mubi free for 30 days at Mubi.com/check. That's MUBI.com/check.
You live 30 days on Mubi totally free.
You get a whole month of great cinema for free. If you go to Mubi.com/check, you're going to sign up, you're going to like it, and you're going to want to stick with it. Mubi rules.
30 days free on Mubi essentially means you can watch 16 movies for free.
Sure.
Right?
Right. Yeah,
Is that math right?
Yeah, because there's like one new every day.
Cineast Cow's agreeing with me.
Yeah, he hasn't done a lot this episode.
What's a cow? I don't know. First of all, she.
Sorry.
Don't misgender Cineast Cow. Second of all, what do you expect? It's a cow. It's just a cow that appreciates cinema. It's not a performer.
It's a fair point.
She's just here to show support. And now let me just get her out of...
Pushing the cow.
Now that she's gone, I have to say I agree with you. It feels like it's not worth the effort of bringing her in here.
Just not pulling their weight considering the fee.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But everyone should sign up for Mubi.
Mubi.com/check.
Worth it.
My dad was obsessed with Ali. I just want to say this.
Oh, yes.
I keep forgetting about this anecdote. My dad covered the Rome Olympics, 1960, which Ali fought in.
Whoa.
And when he was a little baby, when he was like 19. And Ali did the thing that he does in this to him, the which was one of his favorite tricks, the put your hands up, I'm going to punch you 6 times.
Yeah.
Did I get you? Like, which is so funny.
Yeah.
And I remember he was like, he did that to me. I remember that. That's all. And I couldn't forget about that before we got this out of here.
I think my dad's story is he did the same thing to him when they were filming the documentary.
Sure. It was like his favorite little jokey thing.
But his hands were shaking and he couldn't do it. My dad was like, oh, God, this is the most depressing thing.
Well, that's the thing. The fight your dad is covering is like the fight where afterwards people are like, he's already showing the signs of Parkinson's disease. Like, it's not even a joke.
I think it was the last one.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Right. And one more miracle was the pitch of like, he's going to pull it out one more time. And everyone's like, you can't like stand up.
Right.
Yeah.
But we don't have that in this movie.
No.
So we're starting with the Liston fight, the Sam Cooke, all that stuff.
Him running, the flashbacks to his childhood, the sense of this guy like reckoning with his place in society. You know?
Yep.
His history as a black man in America, and now someone on the cusp of having, you know, the ear of a nation.
And right after the fight, he and Malcolm are talking about going to Africa, but it's already kind of over. For Malcolm. Like, you know, we're entering at the end of his time.
This would have been like, what, 63, 64?
Yeah, when is the first Clay Listener fight?
I think it's 63, because I think that's when Malcolm makes his trip to Mecca.
Yes. Right. Alone.
Yeah.
Or not alone, but not... No, 64 is the
64?
fight.
Okay.
And then 65, I think they fought again. Yeah. Yeah, right. So... I guess they're probably like fudging the timeline a little bit, right? Because when does Malcolm get assassinated?
65.
Right. Which they depict.
Yeah, this is also one of those movies that just jumps around in time.
A little bit.
Which I think disoriented people because it doesn't make like hard proclamations of how much time has passed or when we are.
Right. But you're in 64 is when Malcolm sort of breaks with the Nation of Islam. So I guess that's just sort of happening.
Yeah. And these are two guys who are like, you know, in the center of the cultural conversation, and you get a lot of scenes of them in just like shitty hotel rooms with like 20 other people just being like, what are we doing? Is this like, are we doing okay here?
There's the one scene where Ali is like watching a documentary about termites.
Yeah.
And Malcolm comes in and just kind of like has his monologue about being angry. And it's just like, what movie am I watching?
Yes.
Like, this is supposed to be a Muhammad Ali biopic, and there's just very raw kind of like moment involving Malcolm X.
Yeah. But that thing about all these people being around them all the time, whether it's like family members or like the press or the people of their team, it's like I feel like a very good visual representation. The fact that you have all these actors in almost every scene, in almost every shot, whether or not they're speaking, of just like the weight you must feel if you're in that position.
Right.
You know, that you have all these people who are sort of connected to you and are looking to you.
Right.
And you're like controlling the room, even if you're just sitting down watching a documentary on TV.
Right.
Everyone's sort of like circling around you. I mean, it's like, you know, some people have entourages because they want to insulate themselves from the world.
Well, sure. And also you can't like go out as a normal person anymore. So you sort of need to have a social scene with you.
Right.
Yeah.
But some people have like entourages to try to remind themselves of like what's going on.
Sure. Right.
And this feels like a guy who's like constantly trying to make sure he's still like connected to a web of people.
But he's very inscrutable in this movie.
Yes.
Totally.
I think that's one reason people were really just not into this movie.
He never explains himself once in the entire movie.
Right. And I think you could watch this movie and have the takeaway, like, wasn't Ali like a very passive guy who was kind of being led by other people? But I don't think that's the take the movie has. It's just that he was kind of a locked up guy.
I also just think this is closer to how people behave in real life.
Right.
Like, people want the fucking
Which
Bohemian
Michael
Rhapsody
Mann likes.
thing. Right.
But I could also see a studio being like, Michael, Jesus, he's charismatic. Have you heard of him? He's very charismatic.
Right.
Which, of course, he is charismatic. I think Will Smith's great in the scenes where he's being the showman and he's like, but like, you know.
But very rarely do people just clearly elucidate what they're planning to do and why they're planning to do it.
Sure.
And so this is a movie where he just kind of acts and people are like, wait, that's going to go out on the news. And he's like, yeah, I know.
Right.
Right. And then he goes and takes a shower.
Sure. So he changes his name. There's the scene where Howard Cosell corrects himself on air, which I think is very powerful.
Really.
And like
really,
beautifully acted.
Yeah.
that's sort of like where he's just sort of sensible. He's like, right, you get to be called whatever you want to be called, right? I apologize.
Yes, it is weird that that becomes like the movie's slam dunk Oscar nomination, because I feel like when everyone was excited for this movie, that was the big question mark of like, what the fuck is he doing casting Jon Voight as Howard Cosell?
Insane makeup.
Which I gotta say, I had forgot. Every time I've seen this, I just forget it's Jon Voight.
Yeah.
He does not look like him.
No. Doesn't sound like him.
You showed me a picture of him in the makeup. I would certainly never guess that it's him.
But I feel
it's
like
one of those rare ones.
That Monday Night Football, like TNT movies around the same time where you have Turturro playing Howard Cosell.
Right.
And that's like...
He doesn't really look like Howard Cosell. He's got the hair.
Right.
But apart from that, he just sort of looks like this weird guy.
And he also doesn't totally sound like Howard Cosell.
No,
like he's doing a good character, but it's not like a one-to-one, dead-on impression.
It's very odd performance. It's so good.
But it's
and
so
yet apparently
good.
both Mann and Smith were like, Voight's the guy for it.
Yeah.
Which I guess Mann had worked with Voight and Heat.
As a fence with
he
a
plays
ponytail.
a fence with a big hair. Yeah, that's right.
And had Smith worked with him? No, right?
I don't think so.
Is he not an enemy of the state?
He feels like he could be an enemy of the state.
He wasn't an enemy of the state.
Maybe he's an enemy of the state.
He could be in it, right?
Yeah. It's a very weird choice, but I think the thing that Voight is so tapped into, which is like another key to this movie, is the way this guy shows his emotion while having this like completely unbreakable professional broadcaster sort of behavior, you know?
Right.
And Jon Voight is an enemy of the state.
There you go.
There we go.
See? I knew it.
Yeah.
He plays Thomas Bryan Reynolds.
But that fact that, like, he's not a guy, like, what's so touching about that first scene where he, like, acknowledges his name change is that this guy is not losing his professional broadcast composure. That it's not like some moment where he breaks down and makes some big emotional stance. That he's so businesslike about it. Is just like, this is a guy who retains his humanity, even while he's always constantly kind of performing. And I think that's the thing that Ali and Cosell probably bonded on. Is they both had these like very specific personas.
Yeah, and they were very they were expected to fill a specific role in society.
They always had to be on. Yeah.
He meets Sonji, Jada's character.
It was so good.
I love that scene. I love her so much as an actress.
She is so good at connecting with other actors.
I know.
Which is like, feels like a light compliment because that's like the name of the game. Right. But when I see her on screen, I'm like, oh, right. Like you have good chemistry with everyone. Right. And you totally change based on who you're working with and what scene you're in and what project you're in. And this is the first time. Well, she was on a couple episodes of Fresh Prince.
But I think this is the first time they're together.
Right, in a movie. Yeah,
interesting role for her to play when you consider the dynamic of their relationship, because she's out of the movie fast.
Yes,
right. You know, the nation doesn't approve of her. She's too loose or whatever. Right? She doesn't,
too wild, too loud, too fast.
So she's out of there really quickly.
But they have
in my memory, she was in more of the movie.
Me too.
And she's really not.
Yeah.
Because he meets Nona Gay right after.
Right.
And she's very appealing too. I mean, I think Michael Mann wants you to think about the fact that Muhammad Ali married young women over and over again.
I did not realize that Nona Gay's character was 17.
But she introduces herself as saying, I interviewed you when I was a child.
Right.
And you were a grown man.
And I was like, please say it was 15 years ago.
Right. I think the scene of them getting married, which again, it becomes very impressionistic in the middle of the movie.
And I mean, I guess
no detail.
This movie has grown on me in the times I've watched it. But the first time I saw it, I was sort of like this back middle part of it, just it drags, and there are moments.
It's long.
There are parts that kind of just feel like they shouldn't even be in the movie. The whole FBI informant subplot. I think
there's a little too much stuff in the offices when you have your weird here's Ted Levine and Bruce McGill tapping wires.
Mann keeps adding that in all his re-edits. He puts more of that in.
Why?
He's we need to realize that the FBI was always watching him. So it's sort of part of the scrutiny thing, but I agree that it is weird because it never resolves.
No, it never resolves.
It's not like Bruce McGill comes in at the end and is like, "You're under arrest,"
and it kind of just slows. It takes it runs into the impressionistic parts and just you're sort of oh, okay, moment with with his wife, or like with, and then the FBI is wiretapped his phones. And
it feels like it's out of a more perfunctory, plot-driven movie.
But except none of the plot
doesn't pay off.
Nothing resolves in this movie. Like Jamie Foxx is in most of this movie. I think it's a terrific performance. It was that early sort of like where people are like, is Jamie Foxx a real talent?
I remember being the first time.
Has he done a performance like this since? Like just a weird fucking performance.
Honestly, the closest thing to this,
the Soloist.
The Soloist.
Yeah,
I was about to say, which no one remembers, nor should they. But no, he rarely lets himself be this uncool. Like he's he's playing kind of a famously uncool guy. Like he was a weird guy, and after this,
he's like a balding half-Jew heroin addict.
Yeah, and who talks about how he's a balding half-Jew heroin addict.
And
so he won't shut up about it.
And like an amateur poet.
Yeah, right. After this is like, he doesn't really do much until Collateral and Ray in 2004. He doesn't really do a lot of movies.
Right.
Which are also both weird performances in their way, actually, you know.
There was another...
I think Collateral's a very against type performance for Fox.
Against type. Very weird, very good performance. I think it's a terrific
We talked about this, we'll talk about it in the episode, but that role was written for Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
That was the whole notion was like, you put Tom Cruise against an obvious comedic actor playing a little toned down. And it was like, Mann was like, I want him in like Punch Drunk Love mode. Jamie Foxx was a very weird casting choice.
But he leans into it and he's good at it. He's good at playing a charisma-less guy. Like,
It felt weird at the time that he was casting someone whose reputation was largely cool to play the part in what was supposed to be an odd couple, kind of like one guy's a loser movie.
Yeah, he's good at it.
He's really good at
it. Because he takes Jada and Jamie Foxx from this movie. Mann does that thing where he'll kind of like pick someone from the last movie and bring him to the next project. Like sort of, you know. I mean, Jamie Foxx is his guy.
He does 3 consecutive Jamie Foxx
and then
movies.
They fall out in Miami Vice.
Collateral, Miami Vice. Mm-hmm. What's the third?
This one.
And
then I don't think they like each other anymore.
Oh,
I think Miami Vice drove a wedge between
them.
I
really like Miami Vice.
Rules. It's the best. I think it was a tough experience to make it. But yeah, no, this middle is very fudgy and strange and like tough to get a grasp on. And the political stuff is easier to get a grasp on, obviously, because that's such a crucial part of the Ali myth. But like plot-wise, there's never like much momentum. So I think part of the idea is Ali was literally couldn't really do anything.
Right, he's aimless. He's sort of
very aimless. Yeah. And like his dad and people are saying like these are the prime years of your career, and you're like
you don't get many of them. I like that scene with Joe Morton.
Yeah,
is so good where he's like you don't get many of these.
Yeah.
And when he pitches him the burger place. I mean, I like how much the movie is focusing on how broke he is.
Yeah.
You know, that weird position of being like, you still are incredibly famous, even if you are vilified certain quarters, and you can barely pay your bills.
Right. Yeah,
that he's sort of at this, like, standstill.
And then, like, things are happening. Like, Malcolm is assassinated. We see Martin Luther King played by LeVar Burton.
Very strange.
Only on television.
0 dialogue.
And, like, you know, like, it's like history
sort of his performance is a photo in a newspaper.
Yeah. Again, I feel like this is what bothers people about this movie.
Right.
Because it does, it has sort of a bit of the kind of, like, facade of a traditional biopic at parts. And I can imagine being an audience goer hyped up to see it, and you get that open, and you get sort of like, oh, Malcolm X there, and all these people.
Right, I understand.
And then
this is what it was like. Right?
Then for 45 minutes, you're just kind of like
chilling,
just hanging out. It's like
it's like another failed marriage,
right? A marriage that's sort of immediately, obviously not.
He's not heroic. He's not. He's not politically. He's sort of. He's a guy who is very famous and has no idea what to do with this.
Right. And also, one of his most political and heroic acts is him not doing something.
Right.
So there's that too. Right.
And the sense that he has like a very strong belief in his own morality. Like he knows what he stands for.
Yeah.
And he's only questioning how much damage that is causing him.
Yeah.
Like there's no consideration. Like he is so steadfast. There's no scene where he like talks through the process of why he's going to refuse the draft. But you have a lot of scenes of him just being like, that's a really tough decision. Huh? I'm really smarting from this thing. The thing I was going to say about the Jada Pinkett thing, I love that scene where she asks him if he's a virgin.
Right.
Because he is so weird when she's seducing him. And it is that sense of like these 3 marriages to these young women. It kind of feels like he has built this like very sort of like confident loud persona around a guy who isn't really in touch with the more intimate, quiet sides of his personality. So every time he like meets a nice woman, he like immediately falls madly in love with her. Goes straight to the far end. I mean, Baba Shaka Henley has that line where he's like, "This is like a woman you date. You don't marry her."
Yeah, right.
You know, this is like a first date.
Yeah,
and he's just like, "No, I know. When I know, this is it." Right.
And I think his first scene with Nona Gay is similarly lovely, and that shot of them getting married, because I think they got married in one of the sort of mass weddings. Like it was, is very lovely. And then she's basically not in the movie anymore.
Yeah,
right.
You know, and we don't even see them fight because I think Michael Mann doesn't. He's sort of like, I don't know, do people fight? Like, the couples have problems? You know, like right? Like, I'm sorry if the chicken got overcooked. I guess that's the like his version. But like.
There's already fighting in the movie, David.
Yeah, he is fighting. He has
Boxing.
the Joe Frazier fight, which he loses, which is also a bummer.
Yeah.
Like, you watch his famous loss.
Right.
Right? Where he just kind of sucks the whole time. He's not really fit. He's not really, like, ready for it.
Yeah.
So that's bad.
Jamie Foxx's big, like, Oscar scene where he admits that he sold the belt.
Yeah.
Which is just, like, so fucking depressing.
He's great in that scene.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the back third of the movie is the Rumble in the Jungle,
right?
Which I feel like When We Were Kings, the documentary, had only come out a few years ago. If you've ever seen, which is like a pretty standard documentary that's just a good retelling of like the Ali charisma and the Rumble in the Jungle.
And it won the Oscar, and it was kind of like a crossover commercial play at the time when there was still very much 100%. A ceiling on documentaries.
And it's about like Don King and like Don King's whole thing and what jerk he was, but also
it's
how good he was at marketing himself.
A very skilled, functional documentary of, in a very concise way, probably what people wanted out of this movie.
Yes.
Explaining Muhammad Ali's cultural importance and setting the stakes for that fight and making you care about it.
Okay.
And it's just like straight down the middle hits you.
Whereas this is like it's so weird,
really weird,
because he kind of I think he kind of likes being in Zaire, right? Like all this stuff where he's walking around,
right when he's really,
is fascinating, but it's also a little depressing. It also feels a little inert. A lot of it's him waiting.
Yes.
You know? He's kind of chilling out. Don King, Michael T. Williamson is great in this movie.
Yeah.
But he's annoying.
That's another, that's another
Ali
crazy
doesn't like him. He's like,
about
shut
this
up.
movie
is you read every letter in the dictionary, that line. Do you know what I'm talking about? They're at a press conference and Don's doing his thing.
Yeah.
I just love that little moment. It's very funny.
That is a crazy thing about this movie, though, where you're like, okay, When We Were Kings, like just a couple years earlier, covered this chapter. Like, Ving Rhames just won a Golden Globe for playing Don King.
Sure, that's right.
Like, Denzel, less than a decade earlier, played Malcolm X. Like, a lot of these figures have just been, like, played iconically.
Sure.
A lot of these chapters in history have just been depicted in more successful, sort of populist ways.
Yeah. And, this is weird.
Which I think,
that
to his
one
credit,
shot
is
of
like...
Mobutu, like, sitting down and being like, bring in... who does he watched it with someone weird. I forget. He's some American journalist or something.
Yeah.
That's all very strange. I think and the fight is weird. The final, like the rope-a-dope, like it's long and it's kind of boring.
His sort of before the fight, his sort of like jog through Zaire or run, and then he's kind of seeing himself represented by the people of Zaire.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of, for me, that is the thing Mann wanted to communicate to the audience. Like, this is the thing that matters about all of this, sort of like Ali recognizing sort of like what this means for other people and deciding to kind of embrace that. But to get there, you do have this like very strange...
It's weird.
Right.
I love it, to be clear.
Right.
I just understand why people found it so distancing or so unsatisfying.
I think it was either Zoller Seitz or Bilga tweeted something, because there have been 3 versions of this movie. There's the one that's released theatrically. Like 2 years later, he did an extended edition.
That's very long.
That's very long. That's like
I think
like
it's 3+
250
hours.
or something.
Right. Yeah.
It like really tips up to the 3-hour mark.
Yeah.
And that was mostly just extended, and then he restructured a couple things.
Yeah.
And then that was re-released in theaters after Ali died.
Yes.
And then, like 6 months after that, they put out a Blu-ray where he was like, after I saw...
It's called the definitive edition.
Right. After I saw the extended cut re-released, I realized I thought I missed a couple points.
Right.
So then he like made it shorter.
It's shorter.
It's the shortest of the 3.
It removes a whole fight,
right?
Which is like an uninteresting fight,
right?
Because Mann said it was episodic.
Yeah.
and it adds political stuff. He wants like more political
Right, he
stuff.
adds more of the white dudes in the offices.
He does.
What's so weird about that whole point of like, I want the audience to understand that he was constantly being like listened to? You get that if it's just one scene.
One scene.
If you cut to one scene of the guys taking the notes,
the
you
hotel
get it.
scene where you see them,
Right.
That's all you need.
Right.
Maybe even keep the scene where the guy eats that really nice looking samosa. I like that.
Yeah,
scene.
that's probably my favorite of them. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of. I'm trying to find any other. I don't know.
But other
any
than
other
that
points
main
about this thing.
fight getting cut, I went to a website where they outlined like second by second the changes between the 3 cuts, and a lot of them are very small. A lot of them are like,
Oh yeah, no. Man
he
is
shortened
always
a
tweaking.
reaction shot. He picked a different piece
obsessive.
of coverage. He's obsessive.
I mean, like, and Fincher's like that too. There are those
Right.
guys, like Fincher famously with Gone Girl, like saw the premiere and was like, this scene is 5 seconds too long, and
Right.
like went back and changed it before it came out.
But Fincher is obsessive up until the moment when it gets out
And then
there.
he's like, right, it's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget it.
Right.
Whereas
Mann's the guy-
like, I don't know, I'll just make another version of it again.
Right.
I mean, maybe with this one in particular, precisely because the public reaction was so tepid, it sort of
Yeah.
you may feel like there's a way to get to like make this more.
That's what he kind of said. I read this
Definitive, right?
Yeah.
this
You know.
Deadline interview that was when the last Blu-ray was coming out, and it was like 6 months post-death. And he was like, I just watched it in the theater, my extended director's cut, right after he had died, and I felt like the story wasn't totally there.
Sure.
Like a lot of times when I change things with like heat or whatever, it's like little technical things that bugged me, or I wish the timing was different. And with this, I thought I could
He's
change
not
a couple
changing
levels.
the inherent
No.
thing, which is that Ali is very mysterious.
Right.
You know,
Right, yeah.
that is his take, and that's probably what's going to bother people more than anything. So,
Oh,
like, you know what I mean?
That's what I was going to say,
Oh,
is
sure.
that the Zoller cites the Bilga quote, and I'm sorry that I'm giving one of them credit for what the other one
Sure.
said
What
by
did they tweet?
splitting
What did they
credit. Was like, it was when they re-released it and they saw it in the wake of his death, and they were like, it's kind of fascinating to watch now, because this is like, but everyone's problem with it was he was using what people thought was going to be a biopic to essentially make a narrative cinematic essay.
Right.
Yeah,
Sure.
Like it's very much like an essay movie about like the intersection between like celebrity and politics.
yeah.
About the most famous person of the 20th century.
Who happens to be kind of inscrutable, and his inner life isn't actually all that well known.
Right.
Right. Totally.
But here's the thing. That's kind of the same with Will Smith.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
You're
There's
right.
an
It's a good
interesting
intersection.
thing where like Will Smith's tipping point where he starts to lose his shine as a celebrity is also when he starts to let us in a little too much. Like late 2000s when it's like him with the kids a lot.
Right.
And he's like doing interviews where now he's like talking about his like philosophical beliefs. And now everyone's starting to question whether or not he's a Scientologist.
Yep.
It was like, oh, we liked him when he was like doing all the press in the world. When he wasn't like standoffish.
Right.
But he was kind of a cipher because his personality was just like, I'm the most fun guy.
Right.
Right.
I have the best energy. I have the best spirits. I'm good at everything.
Right.
I'm Mr. Positive. And I would just remember where like, I think it was this year with Ali, they cut to him in the audience at the Oscars a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And then by the time they got to Best Actor, it was the still photo and he wasn't in the theater. And someone, they said like, what happened to Will Smith? He was there. They
Right.
cut to him during the monologue jokes. And he was like, the babysitter called and said that Jaden had a fever, so we left and we just went home. And it was like, he wasn't going to win that night.
No.
But I remember that being such a big thing of like, we know almost nothing about Will Smith's personal life, outside of the fact that he's married to this other actress and they have kids. But when he does press, he doesn't really talk about himself. He doesn't get political. He's kind of inscrutable outside of being the world's friendliest man.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was like, well, the only things we know about him are like, it seems like he's a good dad.
Yeah.
And then the second you get into him doing interviews where he's like, we let our kids raise themselves.
He started saying weird things.
I built Willow like a $20 million studio. I sat my kids down and told them if they don't want to be in show business, I'm not probably going to have great relationships with them. And then you start to go like, what is Will Smith exactly?
Yeah, what's his deal? And now he's back on the usually, I'm fun. I'm on Instagram,
Right.
Yeah.
and I'll do videos where it's like, man, remember that I was in Wild Wild West? Crazy.
Isn't that
Like,
crazy?
like,
Right.
oh my God.
Yeah, but see, you're relating the two, and they're very similar. But he's not outspoken politically.
that's
That
the key
never
thing.
has
different,
been,
yes.
no.
That's the
And
key
also,
thing.
can you imagine?
As far as I know, at least. I don't think of him as ever...
I cannot
No.
recall a single time Will Smith has said anything political.
even though Obama has always been very clear that like he wants Will Smith to play him.
No, that's just vanity.
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
He always will say, well, he's got ears like
got
mine.
ears.
Like, that's what
Right.
he'll always say.
That's the funniest thing about this movie is the only real prosthetic transformation they do on Will Smith is taping his ears back.
Right.
But yes, no, Will Smith has always been sort of apolitical, and I feel like anytime he's gotten into controversy, it's like he's one of these guys who is like, I'm a student of all religions. I read every side.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
And I remember this quote where he did an interview, and he was like, I think people don't think about like the philosophy of like being a human being. So like I read like Mein Kampf. And I think it's important to like...
He did?
Yeah.
Will.
He was like, I've read...
Take it easy.
He's like, I read everything because I want to know everyone's viewpoint.
Okay.
And you read Mein Kampf and you realize like Hitler doesn't think he's a bad person. Like everyone wakes up thinking they're a good person.
You don't gotta read Mein Kampf to get that insight.
But it's also like, that's the most political thing he's ever said.
Sure.
Is like, I mean, I don't like Hitler, but
But then I feel
the guy
like
didn't think he was a bad
whatever
guy.
machines around him, like anytime he would talk about Scientology or things like, you know,
Right.
like whatever machines around him would sort of be like, Will, no. And like it would just go away and then it just wouldn't be discussed again.
Because
like,
he's
it would
always
just be like, no,
sort of-
chill out.
Right. There was that moment where it was like Tom Cruise was kind of fading. Will Smith had clearly become the unquestionable guy. And then all the stories were coming out about like, oh, Tom Cruise is like wooing Will Smith hard. Like suddenly there were stories about, Katie Holmes, Tom Cruise, Will Smith, and Jada hang out all the time. And then you'd hear things about like Will Smith being Scientology adjacent. But then it was always like, oh, Will and Jada announced that they're going to start a school in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And then it was like, wait a second, the school seems to use like Scientology study tech principles. And then they were like, never mind, we're not starting a school.
Yeah, it's a lot of that stuff.
And then whenever people press them, everyone else who's a member of Scientology is so out loud, like, I love Scientology. And Will Smith's been like, I dabble.
Yeah.
Like
he's a reader, like you say. He thinks about things.
Right.
But
But it is interesting that he's remained so apolitical, and his celebrity was largely connected to the fact that he was so affable, but it never really felt like we knew what made this guy tick. Ding dong.
Hey, all right.
Ding dong, ding dong.
Let's look at the door. Who's here? All right. Who are you? Who's here?
Hello.
Oh, it's the Rhombus.
Excuse me.
Hi. You're no Rhombus.
I'm a square.
You're a
now.
square now.
I got in shape.
People might remember you were on the show a few weeks ago and you were talking about Noom, which is the kind of service that can help you get in shape.
Which I did, and now all of your listeners have narrative closure.
I think that this saga could go on forever. Maybe you get famous, maybe you have ups and downs.
Well, people thought Toy Story 3 was the end of the franchise, but boy, did they ever find a rich story to justify the existence of a Toy Story 4.
So that you liked it.
Yeah, I loved it, of course. Who wouldn't?
Okay.
By the way, congrats to you and Forky.
All right, well, getting in shape isn't just about losing weight. It's about learning healthier habits. It's about feeling better about yourself.
Yep.
Maybe you need more stamina. Maybe you just want to get into that gold pair of jeans, or for you, that goal...
Square pants.
Right.
SpongeBob swapping wardrobes these days.
Ding dong.
Oh.
Ding dong.
All right. Hello.
Oh, hey,
Hey!
it's me.
What's up?
See anything different?
You used to be the hexagon.
Maybe you ought to stop walking, David.
Why don't you stop?
Because you're
the stop sign.
you're an octagon now.
I've
No, he's a
achieved
stop sign.
what I had envisioned for myself using Noom. I'm now a stop sign.
So you took advantage of like a program that gets all your health and weight loss needs in one place. You don't have to like hunt around for workout and calorie tracker and meal plan apps. Like it's all combined.
I said 2 more sides.
Did you take advantage of the sort of cognitive behavioral approaches that are like, offered to you with Noom?
Yeah. They said, hey, what are you doing? You're laying down on the job.
Yeah. You gotta stand up on the job.
And
you
would-
gotta stop not stopping things.
And would you say that Noom taught you moderation and was easy to use in conjunction with any pre-existing popular diet?
Yeah, you kidding? Look at us. We're hella swole right now.
And I'm just wondering here, Noom, it only asks you to commit, like 10 minutes a day?
Let me just double check my notes here. We're all strapped for time, and I'm just asking you to commit 10 minutes a day for yourself. Yes, 10 minutes a day.
Well, Noom's great. You get a goal specialist. You figure out what you want to do with your life too.
Ding dong. Ding dong.
All right, quickly now. Who is it?
Hey, guys, I'm just checking in again. The new ad sales guy here at Audio Boom.
And do you remember your name?
You don't remember my name? Really? I mean, I obviously remember my name because
I'm just a pretty busy diva, you know. Like, you know, there's a lot of people coming in and out of my life.
So you're not
also,
even gonna.
We're recording and like you're interrupting.
It is true that, I mean, considering that you work at a podcast company, you do sort of burst into podcasts.
I rang the bell. What are you talking about? I gave you a standard ding dong.
I guess he did ring the bell to the studio.
Right.
I had
Right,
installed, which was probably not a good idea.
Look, my name is David Johnson or something.
It's definitely not that.
John Davidson.
I think
It might be that. Yeah.
And I'm just trying to form a good relationship with you guys. We're very proud to have you here on the podcast
Can I
network.
just
I'm trying
tell
to sell ads. I heard Noom wants to buy an ad on the show. Will you guys be interested in sponsoring, letting Noom sponsor an episode?
They already are. Can I just tell you something?
Wait, when? When did that happen?
I don't know. A while ago.
I'm new here. You should film me.
You're new here. Well, listen, can I just call to action?
Fine.
Section is mandatory.
Actually, I like your shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
It is a nice shirt.
It says, this isn't a beer belly, it's a fuel tank for a sex mission.
Doesn't seem office appropriate, but I mean, you do you.
He's got his own vibe, this guy.
He's got a vibe.
It's casual
He's
Friday.
a real
Come on.
character. All right, you don't have to change it all in one day. Small steps make big process.
The shirt, I mean, you gotta admit, the shirt works. The shirt plays. Mission accomplished. This guy's busting a gut.
Shut up.
Even the stop sign's laughing.
You don't have to change it all in one day. Small steps make big progress. Sign up for your trial today at Noom. That's NOOM.com/check. What do you have to lose?
Ding dong.
Visit Noom.com/check to start your trial today. That's Noom.com/check. The last weight loss program you'll ever need.
Dollar bill, y'all.
Checky!
Remember, we made plans to hang out tonight? Is that?
Oh, yeah. Totally. Are you cool with the hangout being a subway ride to my house and then you can't come to my house?
Yeah, and I can't hang either at all.
But I mean, I'm happy to hang with you. You just got to take the 6 train with me.
Are you kidding? I just.
That's the hang.
I took the Metro North all the way from Mount Kisco, and
Do
now
you
you're
live
telling.
in Mount Kisco?
Of course I do. Do you know how high rents are? You guys barely cut me in on the ad sales for this podcast. Of course I live in Mount Kisco.
All right. Well,
There's no Checky merch. I'm not getting a cut of that.
sorry.
You should hang out with the stop sign in this fucking hexagon or whatever.
Yeah, I want to hang out with these guys.
I don't know. They are kind of cool.
They're pretty jacked.
There's something with Will Smith too about, and this would make some sort of an unusual choice to play Muhammad Ali. Is that like Will Smith is a black celebrity at a time when this kind of black celebrity is still a little precarious, right?
Yeah.
That like there's this thinking that if you get too outspoken or too political and don't have kind of like a pre-existing base of black people to retreat to,
right,
you're fucked. Like
right.
you can't, you're done in the business. And so Will Smith probably, like, it's so conditioned in that world that even if he does have sincere political beliefs, they're never going to come out.
Right, but you think
like Denzel comes out of the same kind of time period.
100%. Even though he'll work with Spike Lee or someone
Yeah.
who will happily, talk all day about whatever's on his mind.
Right.
But yeah, Denzel, like, has he expressed political thought really? Like, not really.
Even Sam Jackson's only recently started getting kind of like
Sure.
vocal
Anti-Trump.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
and he's like, that's just a character thing.
then
I mean,
there's-
fuck this
But
guy.
then there's always like the Hollywood liberal types,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
your George Clooney's, whoever, who are like always very outspoken, and everyone's just like blah blah blah. Who cares, right? There's like that type.
It's almost, it would be the equivalent of like, this is sort of the argument of the big documentary, but like if O.J. Simpson had come out against some political thing in
Right.
the 70s,
Whereas he was studiously
right.
I thought of Kanye during Katrina.
sure.
Yes, at that moment, because that was like the first time. Yeah,
That was-
Yeah.
But even then, there's something unique. What makes the 60s unique is that so much is happening,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
That there's the civil
Yeah.
rights movement, there is the nation, there is Black Power, there is the Vietnam War, and Ali is kind of just like right at the center of all of it.
Right, and you go like, this is like not too long after like the Hollywood blacklistings.
Yeah.
when there's been like a real precedent set for like if you're in the limelight and you express un-American thoughts, you're fucking canceled. Like it was the original cancellation, you know?
I didn't know about this.
Oh yeah. You don't know about the Hollywood blacklisting?
No.
Oh,
yeah. Lots of people's names were struck from movies.
You would
like that.
love this period.
It's basically there's one of the recurring Red Scares in the 20th century, and like they're sort of trying to hunt out all the communists in American culture.
Right, and they found like
swung back around
any celebrity who had like ever
sort of. At least in once by the time Vietnam comes around, you can publicly take an anti-war position. You might get in trouble.
I don't think it was the communism thing, but I think the idea of like Muhammad Ali being like, we shouldn't be in this war, was like, you got two choices. You either support it or you shut the fuck up. And you're already in a religion that we find a little scary. Yeah. So like, dude, you're walking on thin ice. Which
pretty scary.
Right.
That's the position.
It's the Nation that was really crazy, right?
Yeah. Right.
He was in the Nation.
Right. But they talk about in the first hour of this movie, they keep on saying like, this radical militant group.
Because like, again, you can always like, it's like Charlton Heston marched with Martin Luther King. Like there were lots of Hollywood actors who were very outspoken liberals at the time, but they were usually like preaching nonviolence and marching with,
Right, that's why MLK was like his success was so tied to the fact that he was able to tackle all these subjects in a way that was nonviolent, which made him very easy to endorse.
But also, Ali would like go on TV and they'd be like, "Come on, you can't really think that," and he'd be like, "Yes, I do," and I'm going to say a bunch of other stuff now.
Do you know what the key difference is? I mean, because we're saying, obviously, there are examples of people who are famous, who are outspoken, who take a stand on certain issues. But there's the thing when someone becomes the undisputed number one in their field, where they are like king of the mountain right at the top.
Sure.
Those people then, their main impetus becomes, I can't lose this.
Right.
And Ali is a guy who was like, I will consciously let them take
literally,
all of this away
like,
from
you
me.
have to box right now.
We'll
and he's
strip
like,
the titles from you. We'll ban you. Yeah.
And what makes it so fascinating is I can't think of another period where that could have happened.
No.
Right? Like, when Michael Jordan is the indisputed best basketball player in the world, there was nothing happening politically.
Weren't the same kind of issues.
It's not the same kind of thing.
There's not what could he have said?
Music is where that's happening in the 90s, right?
Well,
what could he have said? Like, I support Bill Clinton. Like, I don't know what.
Triangulation is the way forward. That's right. A third way. I'm Michael Jordan. I support gutting welfare, but
also, like, Michael Jordan was never a very interesting interview. Like, it was like, this Michael Jordan guy is good at selling me coke.
Well, Michael Jordan liked to talk about basketball.
Right.
Like, that was what he cared about. Whereas LeBron James has actually been, he's fairly outspoken.
Yeah.
And like, he like Trayvon Martin, things like, he's always been fairly good at, like, he's not like the most dynamic interview in the world or anything, but he's like usually staking out sort of the quote unquote, like, slightly more radical position.
War is different in how Americans think about it, like politically. Like even unpopular wars, it's difficult. Like, how many people now do you
it's
hear
not like
say,
LeBron James was ever like, we shouldn't be in Iraq.
Right.
That would have been nuts.
Right.
And that was never on the table.
The one group of celebrities who said we shouldn't be in Iraq, the Dixie Chicks, were canceled for 10 years.
Sure. Right.
That's true.
Right.
They were fine.
They were like, we don't support this president and his war.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, they got in trouble because they were
that was their base,
quote unquote, red states.
Right.
Whereas, like, again, George Clooney, Woody Harrelson, Ed Begley Jr., like, whoever you want to think, like, they were all like, we shouldn't be in Iraq, and everyone was like, well, of course you think that, George Clooney.
Right, and this is another thing.
And no one gave a shit, even though, like, George Clooney was certainly famous, right?
And Clooney is so issue-based from the beginning that he, like, makes the
Bono,
choice.
Right? Or whatever, right?
But all these guys, like, as they're...
whatever.
This is the thing. Like, Bono's like, shouldn't be in the war, and everyone's like, okay, Bono.
Both David and Jamel just did a jerk-off motion. Two respected journalists
from
Papers of
Get
Record.
out of here. What are you talking about?
No, but there is the kind of like Clooney being like, I'm starting to be on the conveyor belt to being a superstar.
Sure.
I'm going to be very outspoken politically from the get-go. And like, my tiny little fucking sliver of the universe, I had a bunch of people go like, are you going to stop like tweeting like fuck you Trump stuff now that you're on an Amazon show? And I'm like, no, I don't care. And they're like, yeah, but what if some people don't watch the show because of that? I'm like, what if 5,000 people don't watch the show?
Who are these weirdos?
You would be surprised how many people ask me that.
Sure.
And I'm just like, I don't care. you know? And I think Clooney is a guy who is like, I don't care. My values matter. I'm going to lead with that. And there are other people who do that. But then there are people who like become famous first and then are like, fuck. The drop between 1 and 2 is huge.
Yeah,
and I don't want to make that drop.
Right.
And someone like Taylor Swift, for years, people were like, is she a white nationalist? Because she won't speak out against anything. And then you
Whereas
realize,
she's taking this concerted stance, like, I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm just not going to talk about it.
and we all jump to white nationalists because you're like, well, the only reason she wouldn't talk about it is if she was a white nationalist. And then it was only in the last like 6 months that she was like, I'm donating $100,000 to like female.
I'm a fairly ordinary sort of like, you know, moderate liberal or whatever, like a Clinton voter.
I'm not super engaged in politics.
You're right, exactly.
And was like, here, but I donated to a bunch of like female Senate races, you know?
Right.
It's that thing. And that's what makes Ali like unique. And that's the movie that Michael Mann wanted to make.
Right.
And also, I mean, I think part of the point Mann's trying to make is that even the decision to be outspoken is a little mysterious. Like it doesn't.
Sure.
You can't. No one reasons it. No one says to themselves like, well, you know,
now it's time for me.
Now it's time. It's just sort of. It happened.
That phone call scene is the big one for me. Right. Where like he hangs up. You see everyone in the room who's kind of like amused by the quotes he's giving, and then he hangs up, and they're like, "That was a reporter. They're going to run that.
Right.
You don't want to use that language.
Right.
You know." And it's like, it's the Emmett Till thing of like that being like so at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
And he invokes it over and over again, is that sense of just like, you're walking on thin ice. Like, even if you're top of the world right now, you're like one inappropriate wolf whistle away.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not you did it, of them being able to accuse you of a whistle. And it's like, it's all fucking gone and you're thrown in the garbage.
Something about that Emmett Till scene that the first time I watched it, I didn't notice it. But when he looks at the newspaper, the old man who's holding it pushed it in his face.
Right.
Which is also sort of like, there's something about that and sort of the fact that Ali surrounds himself with lots of political black people over the course of his life who are basically doing the same, pushing in his face.
And he maybe is paying attention. Yeah, right. You know, sometimes he's more just in his own head, but it's all
not to
he
scare
wants it
him,
around
but
him.
to like remind him of what the stakes are.
Right.
He's not trying to be insulated.
And why he hates Don King so much. I think it's important that he hates where he like immediately is like, now you're just, this is bullshit. You're not trying to like bring money to Africa
You're just a
or whatever. You know,
right. He's the Greatest Showman.
Yeah, he was. What if they do a Greatest Showman sequel about Don King?
What if Greatest Showman becomes
better
like
movie.
An anthology franchise?
That would be a better movie.
Better
yes,
movie.
Right.
Yeah.
But it had the similar take where it's like, he was great. You know, like that was it. And you're like, what about all this stuff? And it's like, nah, he was a showman.
That's what I would love. I would love if like they like the Greatest Showman becomes like Gold Diggers of 1933,
right,
where they update it every couple of years with another shitty guy who abused people.
The
And
Greatest
like,
Showman, Donald Trump.
he loved entertaining an audience.
In a way, he is the Greatest Showman.
He kind of was the greatest.
All right. We're gonna do the we're wrapping up now.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have any final thoughts? I feel like this is a more in-depth, like kind of take on a movie and sort of its like cultural import than we've done in a while.
That's good though.
Yeah.
This is the movie to do that
And
for.
it's not a plotting movie. Yeah.
Weirdly not.
Right.
If you have any final thoughts, because then we're going to get to the joke I stole, the box office game, and the Spies and the Skies trailer.
Yeah,
Those are the three things we got to knock
yeah.
off.
We got.
I feel like I've said my piece on the movie. I think that I don't know if there will be another Muhammad Ali biopic.
Ang Lee came very close to doing the Ali.
Just the Thrill in Manila. Like he wanted
Yeah.
to do just like a one fight movie.
And I feel like no one's ever going to step up to the hubris of we're doing another definitive one.
Right.
I assume anytime anyone
It would
ever
be
makes a
something like
Muhammad
that.
Ali, it would be like one slice.
Right. But I do think Mann was on the right track, trying to situate Ali in a very specific historical circumstance and kind of almost make the point that like maybe nothing like this can happen again. Just like the conditions for it just don't exist anymore. And that's what makes, more than anything, that's what makes Ali historically noteworthy. That
they'll never be a figure that culturally dominant.
Yeah.
There's not like one person, like even LeBron James or whoever, like name the top athlete.
Right.
Like they don't have as much of the public's attention.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have monoculture anymore. And also, no one will ever have that impact again because he was the first one to do that.
Right.
It became such a big deal because that was not how
It was
celebrities behave.
Right.
Yeah.
And the movie itself, challenging movie. I understand why people do not like it.
Yeah.
But
it's, as you said, like, it's a movie that rewards upon rewatch and further engagement.
I think so. I think it does.
I think it's not a movie you can watch once and kind of digest.
I mean, if it is kind of like an essay, then it is an essay that, like, one of those ones that you do your first read to kind of get a sense of what it is, and then you have to do continuous deep readings.
Right. One other thing I like about this movie that I think they just handle very subtly. Bombadil is the Jamie Foxx guy, right?
Yeah.
That
Drew Bandini Brown. Yeah.
Right. Not Bombadil. What the fuck am I talking about?
I don't know. What are you?
Bandini Brown. That he was sort of like his joke writer. Right. In terms of the rhymes.
Yeah, he was coming up with a lot of the patterns.
Right, and you never see any of that. Right. But there's like the line where Will Smith is talking about like how hard he's like sort of gone down the drain.
Yeah,
he's like his rhymes don't even make sense anymore. And you get the sense that it's just like he's like a weird guy who talked in this like circular pattern, and then Ali was like, cool, I'm gonna start taking some of these.
Sure.
I know how to actually sell them.
I mean, and this is a stray thought, but like, there's during the Sonny Liston fight, when he's sitting in the corner, Ali, you can see it if you watch the actual fight, would keep turning to the crowd and going like that, like baring his teeth. And he does it with the mouth guard in. It looks weird.
Yeah.
And he wasn't yelling. He was just doing that. And he does it in this movie.
Right.
It's never explained.
Yeah.
Because no one knows why he did that.
Right.
Even though he's the most famous person of the 20th century, maybe.
Right. You don't have a scene where Freddie Mercury breaks the microphone stand. Like, what if I did this face?
Right. And like, that's right. It's like, I'm sure maybe even people asked him, what were you doing? And he maybe even had some answer that may or may not have been true.
Yeah.
Like, because he is so inscrograble, even though he's so famous. He's a hard person to make a movie about.
Yeah.
But he's also very iconic. I think it's a good movie. Yeah. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
And like frustrating
and
intentionally.
A very weird Christmas Day release.
Very weird Christmas Day release. But first, before we do the box office game, the joke I stole from you was Jupiter reaching cruising altitude.
Oh, thank you!
As a sequel to Jupiter Ascending. Which I think had just become canonical in my brain.
Sure.
Because that we make that joke.
Yeah.
You haven't forgiven me for this.
I haven't.
Well, I'm sorry.
We'll work it out in the divorce, in the settlement.
What? We're not getting divorced.
We're getting divorced.
Does Ben get like split in half or something?
Yeah.
No,
no, baby.
Yeah, I get the top half. We're gonna divorce and still keep doing the podcast.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, fine. The box office, 2001, just in Christmas 2001.
Yeah,
it's a very long weekend.
Right. When
it's like a
Christmas
5-day weekend.
Okay. And
it's basically Christmas to New Year was like a weekend.
I feel like this is one of those movies where like the first day was big and people were like, oh, it's going to be a hit. And then it just dropped way off.
I guess so. If you break it down daily, $10 million on Christmas. Yeah. And then kind of drops off. But it grossed like
60 in total?
It grossed 58 total. In its first week, it grossed 40 million.
Right.
So it made almost all of its money in the first week.
It made it made more than 1/6 of its entire box office gross in the first 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like that's like,
and it made no money overseas, like 29 million. Nothing.
Right. It's kind of similar to Sweeney Todd, where it was like big star, peak, working with a big director, and then everyone goes to see it at Christmas, and they're like, "What the fuck is this?"
Forget it.
And it hemorrhages.
But there's
audience.
another problem.
Lord of the Rings.
Number one at the box office is Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, which of course people thought was going to be a hit, but becomes unstoppable.
Yeah.
And people are seeing it again and again and again.
I think especially after Harry Potter worked, people were like, well, now like Lord of the Rings is kind of going to be warmed over. It's going to be the bridesmaid.
Right, exactly. Harry Potter's going to eat its lunch.
Right.
Yeah.
And then a month later, Lord of the Rings becomes this like...
Harry Potter, that first one come out in 2001?
Yes, it came out in November, right? Yeah.
Right, they're like a month apart.
Wow. In my brain, Harry Potter comes out a couple years later, but I guess...
No, they both started at the same time, and I remember it being like, one of these is going to be humongous.
Sure.
And obviously Harry Potter's the safer bet because it's got this cultural thing. But
and
Chris
it was
Columbus
the highest grossing movie of the year.
Right.
Yeah, although they grossed pretty much the same amount.
Right.
315 essentially.
Right, and then Lord of the Rings, the next two outgross the next two Potters.
For sure.
Right, and it becomes an Oscar film, which was crazy. But I always think the three things that feel very post 9/11 to me are, or two things really. It's Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter hitting so big,
right,
in the immediate months, and then Spider-Man the following May.
Sure,
are just like, and that now it's all like fucking high fantasy and superheroes. We want like clear good and evil.
Lord of the Rings has made 174 in 2 weeks.
Huge.
But there's another movie that has made 136 in 4 weeks. That's number 2 at the Christmas box office.
December 01.
That's also kind of a definitive movie of the year.
December 01.
Yeah, but it came out in November, I think. I think it was a Thanksgiving movie.
Came out
No,
the end of
early
November.
December. Early December.
It's not Harry Potter.
No.
Monsters, Inc. came out early
We were
November.
talking about its star.
We're talking about
Just
its
now.
star?
Yeah.
Just now? Spider-Man?
No, not Spider-Man.
Get me Spider-Man. It's star just now?
It's a big cast.
Is it Harry Potter?
No.
What do you
Stop
know?
saying Harry Potter. Harry Potter's number 5, actually.
It's
so
not.
You guessed
It's
that.
not, is it a franchise thing?
Yeah. It becomes a franchise.
All the characters got business. They do a lot of different kinds of business.
Sure, a lot of business going on.
Oh,
Big
yeah.
cast, a lot of
Big
business.
cast, like a number of people.
Like a real list.
Yeah, like a number of people.
Is there a number in the title?
Yeah.
It's not 8 Crazy Nights.
No, it's not 8 Crazy Nights. Oh,
Up?
you're right. It's not 9 Lives. Keep
102
going.
Dalmatians?
Jesus.
Down.
101 Dalmatians?
Down.
Double digits?
Just barely.
Just 10? 11? 11?
It's a
Yeah.
remake.
Ocean's 11!
Come on.
Ocean's 11!
People forget that's Christmas too.
Yeah, and that was another huge hit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Ollie and Harry Potter, the only thing we haven't discussed is the number 3 movie of the year. Probably the best movie of the year. An animated film. Was an Oscar nominee that year.
That's not Monsters, Inc.?
Nope.
It's an animated film. It was probably the best film of that
I'm
year.
joking. I've never seen this movie.
This is some of your bullshit.
Is this something I
It's
like?
the other nominee. Who are the 3 animated film nominees? The first year of the Oscars nominated animated
okay,
film.
right. Of course, it's Shrek.
There was Shrek. There was
It's
Monsters,
Inc. People thought the third nom was going to be Waking Life.
Sure.
And a big surprise, a doo-doo-headed boy rode in on his spaceship.
Sure.
Jimmy Neutron himself.
Boy genius.
His head looks like
It
a
does.
turd.
He's got
it's got the little turd swirl when people do a cartoon turd.
So those are the top 5 films.
Wow.
Jimmy Neutron.
Boy genius. Now it's time as we wrap up, and thank you so much for being on
Thank
our
you so
show.
much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Happy to.
For Jamel to watch the Spies in Disguise trailer.
Okay, so here's
Okay.
what we're going to tell you, Jamel, okay? We are going to play you the trailer.
Okay.
We're going to tell you that there's a big twist in the trailer.
Right.
We're going to pause it right before the
You
twist
better
comes into play.
Be quick on the pause. Sure.
Yeah, and we're going to ask you to guess what you think the twist is going to be.
Now he might know. He might have forgotten this movie exists.
And I'm just going to do this first. Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Thanks to Andrew Gudo for our social media, Joe Bo and Pat Rounds for our artwork, Lane Montgomery for our theme song. Go to blankies.reddit.com for some real nerdy shit. TeePublic for some real nerdy shirts. Patreon blank check bonus features. And as always, what's your question? Do you feel like you're prepared?
I feel like I'm prepared. I was going to say, I know I forgot this movie because I have like an 8-month-old and don't remember anything anymore.
Great. Perfect. Okay. Well, this maybe, have you taken your 8-month-old to the cinemas yet?
No. He has not seen a screen yet.
Okay, this should be the one. He's not seen any screen?
No.
You're a good dad. Wow, you rule. Okay. Thank you so much for being on the show, Jamel. Okay, ready? And we're going to press play
Okay.
on the trailer. Feel free to, if you're getting any sense of anything as it's going on. This is the third Will
So far,
Smith
I see
movie.
there are spies in disguise.
Okay, so he kind of looks like Will Smith,
Yeah.
right? This is part of the Will Smith rehabilitation of let's make him America's favorite guy again. Got to meet Lance Sterling. He's got earbuds.
Yeah, I got
he's
some
like-
AirPods.
Right.
Nice,
You guys ready?
Getting ready with the space bar. I know, I got my finger hovering over it. In 2019, so you know it's coming out this year.
Okay, now. So you're gonna have to guess. Where's this going?
I'll wait for it to go black, right?
is he gonna like transform into like a plane or something? The Transformer?
I'll say this. That is a better guess than most people make. You're going off of the To Superfly.
Right.
Which I should have paused it a second earlier. But even still, I'd say you're the closest I've seen anyone guess.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Ready?
Yeah. What the fuck? Wait, what?
It's always so good.
He's a pigeon.
He's a pigeon. There's another pigeon there.
What?
Unbird me right now.
I am speechless. I am a professional opinion writer, and I am speechless.
You got no takes on this one.
No takes.
Okay, wait.
But now, no. Say the title out loud now.
All right.
Say it out loud.
Say the title out loud.
Spies in Disguise.
Well, but what if it's also about spies in
Disguise.
Pointing up.
Thank you, everybody.
Wait, no, there's one last challenge.
Sure.
Will Smith, Tom Holland, Rashida Jones, Karen Gillan. If you had to guess who the last cast member is in this film, the last above the title
cast member.
So Will Smith, one of our most, sort of venerated movie stars.
Danny DeVito.
Tom Holland on the rise. That's a solid guess. You're kind of right in body shape. Ready? TJ Collins. Jamel almost fell out of his chair.
I played myself.
Yes, we've all been played, I think.